I wouldn't
Gotta
want
have
to do.
backup.
Reporter got up there and
I'd have
unloaded,
every
it's like
mailbox
there
in
wasn't
the
a single
ditch.
person from the regional band there at all.
Oh, it's all new?
Yeah, they were all new.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah, even,
You on?
Yeah, I think we're on.
Okay, good.
You're good. We're recording, not streaming.
And we're online and we're live, so.
We are not live tonight. There's an error with the streaming capability, but we are recording, so we can post it.
Oh, okay, all right, so we'll post it later, all right.
Good.
I'll call to order the Presque City Council meeting for Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 at 6:05 PM. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. We have 6 out of 7 councilors present. So I declare a quorum and we'll conduct a meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everybody online and in person that's here this evening. Our first item of business is to conduct a public hearing for the approval of a malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license and special permit for music and dancing and entertainment for Bethany Graves, doing business as Lotus Lounge, with a location of 149 Main Street, Presque, 149 State Street, excuse me. We'll turn the floor over to the city manager and he can introduce the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is for the Lotus Lounge. Bethany Graves doing business as the Lotus Lounge. This is the for their liquor license and permit. At this time, they have ensured all fees are paid. The code team has done their inspection, and we do recommend approval of this.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the lounge or from the public who'd like to speak for or against this application? So we'll open the public hearing at this time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask City Council for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve a malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license for a special music permit for dancing entertainment for Bethany Graves, DBA The Lotus Lounge at 149 State Street.
I'll second it.
Been moved by Craig and seconded by Hank. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. 6-0. Next item of business, tonight's agenda is the citizens' comment section. So this is the opportunity for people to talk about anything they have basically on their mind. We'd ask that you would come to the podium, state your name and address, and in a couple of minutes state your comment. So I'll open the floor to anybody that'd like to speak on citizen comments for this evening. So is there any written ones, Kim? No. Okay. So since there's nothing from the floor or from writing and stuff, I'll close citizen comments and move to the next item on the agenda. Item 2 is the consent agenda. So this would be to approve the minutes from July 10th, 2024, approve the 2024 warrants, 25, 26, 27, totaling $1,608,778.94, and approve the Versant Power Light Pole application as read. So how does the council want to take these separately or together this evening?
I'd move we take them as one item.
It's been moved by Craig to take the consent agenda as one, items 2, 3, and 4 all at once.
Second that.
Been moved by Craig, seconded by Derek. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0. Thank you. Next item under old business was the item 5 for tax commitment for this year. This was a tabled item from previous meeting, so it's in under old business, and we'll ask the city manager to introduce the topic, and then we'll have a little discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is our annual tax commitment that was tabled from a previous meeting. At this time, you have been given an updated memorandum. It is on your desk area. And at this time, I'd like to ask our assessor, our city assessor, Louis Cousins, to come up and discuss the tax rate and the work that he's done. And while he's doing that, I do want to say to Louis, Maria, and Sigrid, thank you very much for the immense work that they've done over the past few months, helping to get this done in a very expeditious manner and ensuring great care for our community. So thank you very much.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. We did talk this through last month, and we've got some updated numbers. I think the Council really generally wanted to digest some of the information you got last time. The tax rate calculator is there in front of us. The important parts for, I think, tonight's discussion are down here at the bottom. We still are able to recommend a mill rate of 21.3, which is right in that center of that page. That is a reduction from last year's mill rate of 22.6. And we arrived at this mill rate by a few different avenues. One is we increased our assessments here in the city, but another is we had a really good year in 2023 of growth. And when we get to the next page, I can show you a little more detail about that. But that's where we're at. The overlay still stays at 98,000, which is kind of average. We've been a fair amount below, but we've also been a fair amount above that the various years. You can see what the reimbursements will be. The homestead reimbursement there, 748,000. The Betty reimbursement, 924,000. There's also tree growth, but it's a small number, like $900. So I'll scroll down to the page that gives some more detail and turn it. This is the comparison year over year. And you can see on the side there, the last column to the right is the increase or decrease from one year to the next. And every line there is an increase, including revenue and including assessments and including expenses. Okay, every expense went up this year that we have to cover through the commitment, being the school, the county, and our own municipal budgets. And the overlay from last year down significantly, but again, if you look across the bottom row of the sheet there, that's kind of an average number, and it covers us. We use that money to cover abatements that may come up during the year, and it's an unknown number until they come in, but we've never come close to using 100,000, so we're very comfortable leaving that in there. Is there any questions about that part? I'm going to scroll down just a little bit more. And again, the 21.3 is kind of a recommendation. It's what we think is going to work for the management side of the city. You have choices, and you can see in that first smaller block to the left of the page, you know, you can be as low as 21.17, and you can be as high as 22.22. 22.2. And it shows you the overlays that you would arrive at if you chose one of those other mill rates. Basically, going up on the higher end simply increases tax bills and gives that kind of money that we really don't have budgeted for or use for. So 21.3 fits our model quite well. Okay. The other center chart there that says taxable increase breakdown, we did increase land on average by 20%. We increased buildings values on average by $10 a square foot. And it's hard to give you a number as to what that results in because there's variables. Depends on the size, depends on the grade and the quality of the building. So each one's affected different. But that's the math in behind, is $10 a square foot. And that gets factored by the system several different ways. A little further down are the numbers that put things into perspective. And the year-to-year tax bill comparison, you can see that $150,000 home, that's out to the left there, without a homestead, their bill in 2022 would have been $2,969. In 2024, $150,000 home, the bill is $2,663. But we changed the values, so that $150,000 home in the next chart over is now valued at $184,500. So their 2024 tax bill is $3,397, or an increase of $734 over last year. And you can see going down through the $179,000 home, the $250,000 home, and everybody gets an increase the way this is set.
Question,
Sure.
that adjusted value is based on 21.3?
Those haven't changed. That's based on the sales data and what the sales data told us. So yes, the tax bill is based on a mill rate of 21.3,
Okay,
but the value is set in the system
Right.
based on our assessment, yeah.
right. So a $150,000 house jumped from 150,000 to 184 in value.
That
The-
would be over the 3 years too, 22, 23, and 24. Yeah, it's 23% is what it is. If you
But that-
follow,
But that's driven by the state's
Yep.
values given to you.
it's driven
That you
by the,
have to,
Right.
that you have to,
so it's
come in
driven
line with.
by the market as to what properties are truly selling for. The state comes in and analyzes that market and gives us a number that we have to come within 90% of. And we're doing that, we're at 96%. I played with the numbers significantly. We could have lowered that 96 to 94 or 93, but all it does is make the mill rate go up. It doesn't change the bills. So it's one or the
yeah,
other.
you need to collect X number of dollars to pay
Yeah.
for the,
If we were to shoot for a low 90s number, we'll be standing right here next year doing the same thing, increasing again. And if we
Mm.
go to 96, there's a hope that we can skip a year at least, and also watch the market going forward. We don't know how much longer these increases are gonna occur, but there's no end in sight that we're aware of.
What was that stat that you said 30 days or so ago at the last meeting, that we had over 300 homes
Yep.
sell between a certain date? So I don't want to put words in your
Yep.
mouth. What,
No,
what was-
it-
you
it's-
remember that?
That study that I did, the ratio study, there were over 300, I think it was 324 properties that we worked with that sold. We broke those out by the different grades, A through E, and studied each grade individually.
So 324 sold between a certain date and a certain date.
April 1, 2023 and April 1, well, I was using 22, so it's
Yes.
April 1, 2022 and April 1, 2023. Yep. And again, you asked that, a normal year for us before COVID was 250 sales, in that range, 250, 260.
Okay.
And now we're seeing over 300 a year.
Pretty remarkable amount of houses turnover that you drive up and down the street and you see a house and a sign and moving van and it disappears, and then you realize there's a lot of streets and
Yep.
and we have urban and countryside settings in the city of Presque. And when you add them all up in a 12-month period, it was 324 homes.
So, on one hand, the realtors and the attorneys that handle and the appraisers are all very busy. On the other hand, there's a shortage of inventory, and, you know, that's part of what's driving the prices. And the realtors would like to see more inventory so they could have more to play with there. I'll scroll down to the next, little graphic, I'm gonna turn that one too. Where the value came from this year. You can see the bigger increases, the owner and the new value we received, but that column totals up to 17,490,000 in actual growth in the city. And then the other column is what we've gained in solar. It has a value of 17,443,000 that we've captured. And when you do the math out by the mill rate and the reimbursement, we're gonna get 185,769 in reimbursement because of those solar arrays. So, it is significant. This one you saw before. I don't think we need to go over that too much. Those numbers, I don't believe have changed one bit. And then next is a chart that Brad put together. It is just showing you graphically where the increases are that we have to cover. And now I notice that. So the county tax is the blue part, $508,680 increase. The SAD is the orange part, $256,863 increase. And the municipal side, the gray, is $202,696 increase in costs that we have to cover.
That's from 23 to 24.
1 year. Doug?
The county increase, how, I know we're playing some catch-up. Was it because of their change in their fiscal year?
Partially. They've had increased costs too, significant, and they did change their calendar year, but I believe we're doing 1/3. Brad's shaking his head, yes. We're doing the 3-year plan to catch up on that.
So you've got over 50% increase from last year to this year, and you're saying a third of that would not be counted because it's a prepay kind of?
Yes, the county, the increase between this year and last year, the county is actually half of it, or darn near half of it.
No, I'm just saying specifically on the county tax. I'm trying to figure out how much their budget actually went up versus how much we're having to pay extra.
So it's line 7 on page 2,
Yeah, I get that.
but that's also taken into account the calendar year change. That's 18 months opposed to 12. Did you hear, Brad? 350,000? Yep.
So they were still 35-40% increase?
Yep.
What's, we putting away for jail, or what are we doing?
Keeping up with the expenses on the county level.
Paying
Yep.
for all those police departments that closed.
Some of that. So there's a lot of challenges out there and stuff at different levels of government, and the county one is definitely struggling to keep up. And Presque being the biggest revenue producer or biggest share in the game, we're seeing some big numbers off of that. So
That middle chart, where Presque is really shining is in the personal property increases. I think I went by. Yeah. This one shows you in the third column over, those increases were either in real estate or in their personal property. And the businesses we have are totally responsible for those personal property increases. And you can see those numbers. And that's, we have to respect those businesses and appreciate the fact that they're here and not elsewhere. It's really a crucial piece for Presque. The other towns, the mill towns have those kinds of numbers, but the other towns simply do not.
Is that percentage increase relatively universal throughout all towns?
No, it's no,
Not dollar amount, the percentage.
no, not even that. If they don't have businesses to bring in new personal property,
No,
machinery.
county tax. I'm
County
going back on
tax.
the county tax.
What was the question?
Every town pays a percent based on their total municipal valuation.
In their increase in budget, is that uniformly applied?
Yes, now
By
I understand
percentage?
your question,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, every town is seeing those kinds of increases, yes.
Yep.
Yep. The only other thing worth mentioning, you know, this is a hit, and there's no question about that. We're still viewing it as the best of the choices. You know, we can let things slide, we can lose reimbursements, and we can end up doing a reval. That's our other choice. So we've been making adjustments annually or as needed, and that's been keeping us in good shape as far as I'm concerned.
Louis, why don't you hang around and then we can open it up to counselor comments and stuff, so, which we've already started, I guess, so. Doug, you got any more that you wanna talk about as far as county goes
Sorry,
and stuff?
I wasn't wasting any time here.
No, not at all. I think it's worthwhile discussion. It's a big thing. It's on top of everybody's head. I think one of the comments about county budget, and you know, if it's let's just make up some numbers. If you have a $10 million worth of valuation and your county budget share is 10%, you're $1 million to the county. And if you're still at 10%, but you're $100 million, you're gonna spend more, right? So the percentage to the county is the same. It's just the numbers are bigger for a bigger town because the valuations are bigger. So,
Okay, that is,
get it?
that's based on valuation on population.
Right.
Valuation, yep.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm getting educated here. So, because we increased our taxable real estate by almost 20%, that is indirectly or directly raising our tax just by increasing our value.
Yes, but they do adjust for everybody too. It's the same as the school budget. They use the state number to base it all on. Main revenue goes to every town, either whether city, town, or unorganized territory township. Main revenue goes to every one of them and brings their sales and their assessment at the state level to full market value.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other
I'm good.
questions?
Louis, I don't know if you know, Brad might need help us on this. How far below the budget are we right now?
That is a Brad question.
Correct. Is there anything in the pipeline that could disrupt that we'd end up blowing the budget?
Our revenues have been quite strong so far. I mean, you're looking at roughly over 650,000 in revenues this year, so it certainly helps offset.
And I think there's 2 or 3 notable sources of that, right? EMS being one of them. I'm not sure what industrial council was another one.
The forum.
Forum income.
Mhm.
Yep. So
Forum's
about
quite considerable.
in excess of 150,000 up at the forum
Oh, yeah.
already this year.
They were roughly around 300,000 at one point.
So I think, you know, we're tossing out a couple of numbers here and stuff, but I think it's important to note that there's a team effort around the town municipally that is trying to work towards lowering the tax rate for people. So the more revenue we produce, the less taxes we have to ask from people. The more businesses that come into town, the less the burden is on personal property taxes. And that's exactly what we've done since 2018. We've got, if we do pass this proposed rate tonight, since 2018, we'll have dropped the mill rate 17% consistently every year since 2018. So that's, I don't know how long that trend's going to continue, but we want to continue to ride that as far as we can and continue to do the things that we're doing now.
Everything you said is completely true. It's the budget, the net budget, your increased costs, less your increased revenue and your increased value. That's what drives taxes. The mill rate is just the factor that gets you from there to a tax bill. But absolutely, they have gone down, that's a good thing, but all those other factors are what makes that happen, so,
So the,
Keep driving revenue, guys.
that's all.
the new buildings that are downtown, are those going to reflect next year? Like the car wash, Napa, and maybe another one coming up on the industrial park?
Yes, all three of those will be in next year. Now, this year, we fully got, the Veterans Clinic.
Mm.
We only had that listed as incomplete last year, so this year is complete.
Mm.
We got the car wash listed this year as incomplete. It was there, but it wasn't functional or finished.
Mm.
And the Napa building, I have just a square box, just a shell
Mm.
listed. So yes, those will all increase. We've already got those
Okay.
in the books.
So
And,
what would we be looking at for numbers next year? I mean, you know, not necessarily exact, but
Yeah, it's really hard to project that. If we lose a business, okay, it goes the other way too.
Mm.
We have to account for every one of those, things that get demolished. And the building permits, we'll be picking those up next spring, and we just don't know what we're gonna have until we see those.
Okay.
I wouldn't even dare take a stab at an average that we've seen over the last 5 years, so, yeah.
Would it be an accurate statement, Louis, to say that the best way to continue to lower our mill rate or lower tax burden is by driving revenue?
Absolutely, driving revenue and controlling costs.
Always.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Growth, the economy is growth-based, always, so,
It's not a single person's effort. It's a big group trying to drive towards that same goal, which I think we've been relatively on that same track for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So, good job so far. Keep going. Keep it moving forward.
and you're right, it's everybody together.
'Cause
pushing that growth.
this isn't any one of us. This is some of us, as far as the expense side, when we set the budgets and we look at line items and, you know, we delete some things and, you know, we try to keep our municipal operating budget down, but as has been pointed out by Councillor Seer, a lot of the numbers here are beyond our control. County, SAD one, being two of the biggest ones. So we have to do the best we can on our side of the ledger, and then hope those other guys do as good a job, and then we wait to see what the results are, and then here we are.
Well, we don't have much control of valuations either, correct?
Nope.
So
No.
that's-
Nope, because it's market driven. Yep.
Kevin, just to tack on to that, for what we can control, last year, the municipal budget went up 15%, this year it only went up 6. So, just to tag on to what we can control, we're clearly trying to keep low.
Yeah, and I think if we want to jump back a little bit on that history, we had some catching up to do in certain critical areas, especially with regard to public safety, our fire and police people. We were hemorrhaging personnel. We didn't have all of those seats filled. We were behind in terms of average payrolls with like departments, whether they be county or state or other regional areas. And we had to take those steps back then. They weren't easy steps to take. And the fruit is there now. I think that our police is fully staffed or within one seat of being fully staffed right now.
Yeah, they're very close. Actually, they are putting Connex boxes outside because they're starting to burst at the seams. Good space.
I think fire's the same way. We've still got, it's not like it's an over issue and it's on autopilot. We have to continuously monitor that to make sure those are there. And we've got a couple other departments we're currently working on, looking at right now. I think your comment being 15% and 6, it's relevant. That's no one wants to see it go up, but that's the fact of life, right? Sometimes, you know, you got to pay for good people. Sometimes.
You know, it's true. This started in 2018, the big increases, and they haven't let up, so.
Since we have such a big, since we're so far below the budget right now, is there any reason why we have to have the 98,000 overlay and we can't drop it even more?
No.
To at least help cause when you're looking at the averages for the increases, I mean, most people are going to see a $700 increase on their tax bill.
Yep.
So is there any way we can drop the mill rate even lower than it is now?
2125 would probably be as far down as we would wanna go, and that is on the smaller chart there, just above the green line there. And that would still give an overlay of 60,000. That's cutting it kinda close from our perspective, or my perspective at least, on the abatement potential. And again, we don't know what we're gonna see for abatements. We normally 20 to 40,000 is probably our average, but we like to make sure we're covered. That money does roll over if we don't use it into surplus or one of Brad's places.
I'm
So-
just thinking because since
Yeah.
since we're so far below budget now, if we can't lower it even more just to help.
So what you're saying, so if we did run into an abatement that this didn't cover, we'd have to take money from somewhere else to cover that abatement, but
So, number one, we've never done that before because we're in the middle of our budget season and we've still got till December 31st. And although that makes sense in a small business situation, that's not the way municipal budgets work. They budget for the maximum amount of expenses, and if they don't use it, they roll them over.
Derek, I can also kind of shed a little light on that too. So anytime the city has extra funds, if you will, because we haven't spent all of our budget.
They go to the next year.
Well, so they go into reserve. And so what we have done as a council made a commitment the last few years that as those things have occurred, we've put that money right back towards a project. So, excuse me, in the last couple of years, that money has gone to one-time expenses or things that we didn't have to finance. And so rather than turn around and tax the taxpayer again for that money, we've used that money and not added it to the next year's budget. So we've, in essence, yes, we've reduced the next year's budget by that amount. So whether we do it today, which is a guess whether we'll need the money or not, we absolutely can take that off the tax bill for the taxpayer when we do the budget in the fall, which is what we've been doing. And then we know exactly what the number is. And sometimes it's in excess of what the number is now because we have a better end of year than we did at the beginning. So I don't think there's anyone sitting here that has any appetite to tax someone and then put the money in the bank, so to speak, and save it for a rainy day. We want to absolutely use it to reduce the tax burden. But I think it's probably more prudent to use it at the end of the year and have it be an actual number and reduce what we're going to charge in the future. And as for right now, the number that we went into this year's budget thinking we would tax people for was the last year's number, which would be the number of what was it, 22.6, and so that is what we expected to collect from the taxpayers. So we're already, by collecting the 21.3, we're already at this point in the year reducing what we thought we would have to collect by doing that, and then on top of it, we'll return any excess to them in the fall when we do the budget. So yeah, the answer is it probably is better policy to do what Lewis is saying and then use the actual money in the fall to reduce the budget so we just don't tax them where we've already received the money.
and just to add, I do believe, 300,000 this year?
What's that?
300,000 this year came out of reserve?
No. It was 750,000.
So, to your point, Derek, what Brad is saying is the money from last year got brought into this year at that rate.
Didn't use his budget, so that immediately affected. But just to put that in perspective, the changing that overlay
Anybody else have any other comments they want to make? Again, I'd like to echo the city manager's comments a few minutes ago that congratulations to Lewis and the assessing staff. It's a lot of work. We tabled this 4 weeks. I think it was necessary to get all the figures correct. It was a great presentation tonight. It's very transparent. You can see where all the numbers are. I think I'd echo Councillor Green's comments that I think 4 months ago or 3 months ago, projecting forward, we thought we were gonna be flat tax from last year, 22.6, 22.6.
Yeah.
And to be 21.3, I think is a major accomplishment. We're continuing a good trend, and hopefully we can continue that in the future.
The one thing that I guess I would add too is that if you notice in the last few years, our discussions here haven't been what we need to give up. You know, what we can no longer afford in our community. You know, we can no longer afford a fire truck or a new ambulance or a police, position or whatever it may be, that we've been discussing about how to spend money to develop our community. But at the same time, as you can see, the results are, our values are going up, our income is going up, people wanting to be here, the sales of homes are going up. So it's working, and it's working because we've got a great team. And so I guess, just compared to what some of the discussions are around the country and around the state right now about what do we cut, we're not talking about what we have to cut in order just to make ends meet. We're discussing about how to best spend the money to meet the needs of the community, but to also continue the growth in the community, which is a great position to be in. So I just want to applaud the staff of the city, because they're the frontline people. They're the ones that work every day with the public and do those jobs. And they're the ones in the departments that are either holding the line on their budget or they're doing things to make it better. And without that, we wouldn't be where we are.
There's one more point, and that is, we've brought it back to 96%. This isn't an increase. All we've done is bring it back to where it was. Okay, the market took it down. We've just come back to where we need to be.
Yeah.
That's what those value increases are.
So we're trying to do the best job we can, but we are the largest city north of Bangor. We're the service center for Aroostook County. We're providing services for people that are in the outlying areas that come to us for goods, services, recreation, airport. Our recreational facilities are top-notch. Library. There's a lot of use there. Thousands of people a year that go in and out of those places, and a lot of projects on the books to further enhance our community as a service center for Aroostook County. So, this budget or tax rate is solidly. It's not excessive. It's not too conservative. It's right in the middle. So I would endorse the 21.3 mill rate. Anybody else have any other comments? Would anybody like to make a motion? Get this off the ground.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the city council authorize the tax collector to collect payments of year 2025 taxes in advance, that the tax commitment date for 2024 is August 7th, 2024, that the 2024 taxes are due and payable on August 7th, 2024, that the interest to be paid to the city of Presque should be at the rate of 3% per annum on reimbursements due to overpayment of taxes, that interest on unpaid taxes should be at the rate of 6% per annum. Interest of unpaid taxes will begin to occur on October 17th, 2024, and that abatements shall be appropriated from the 2024 overlay, and that the mill rate for 2024 be assessed against all taxable, real, and personal property shall be 21.3 mils.
Second.
Been moved by Jeff and seconded by Craig. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous, 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louis, again, for all the work that you did. Item 6 on the agenda is to approve the Chapter 65 Key to the City Proclamation Flag Raising and Ceremonial Guidelines Ordinance. I'll ask the city manager to once again introduce the topic, and we'll have a discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the purpose of adopting the proclamation for the key to the city flag, or, I'm sorry, the purpose of adopting this ordinance for a proclamation key to the city and flag display and ceremonial guidelines, it establishes uniform guidelines for all parties interested in having city or council-led ceremonies such as flag raisings, proclamations, city honor requests, and public ceremonies. This document has, it's been a multi-month effort across the community, as well as with our legal team as well, at Mr. Courier's office, and we have Jake Flewelling here with us as well, who has reviewed this ordinance. All updates were made after the workshop 2 weeks ago, and this is the final ordinance for you to review and vote on, if you choose.
Is there anything that we want to highlight at this point, or do we want to just go into discussion?
The only highlight I'll say, Mr. Chair, is we did change the diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator to a committee as discussed in the workshop.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask at this point?
Can I ask?
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
I didn't know if I was everybody. So,
You're somebody, dude.
well, I've been out there. So can you give like a 30-second lowdown? There's a lot of wording here, but it's, I guess, just to summarize for the public, if someone wants to fly a nationality flag or a flag that for a
Here.
group that would likely be acceptable, what would the process be throughout the thing?
Yes, no, so thank you. Good question. If an individual wishes to have a flag flown, they will, if this ordinance does pass, they will essentially fill out a form online. It'll be an online request that will go to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. They will review that request and meet with the individual requesting and advise them whether approval or denial based upon the qualifications within this ordinance.
Okay, and they have the final say?
They don't actually technically have the final say. The say can be appealed to council, and a 2/3 majority can override it.
Okay, but if a group wants to fly a flag next month, it's still not too late for them
Correct.
to have to wait till next month's council meeting or anything?
Correct. This eliminates that in the sense that as long as you apply, you can fly it in during the approved period.
Okay.
Another question, sorry I was unable to attend the previous meeting in regard to this, but as far as privately owned flagpoles go, are there any regulations or restrictions in regard to height, size, placement of such that you are aware of? If somebody who's gonna, fly their own flag on their own property, I mean,
You mean,
I had it asked.
you mean, is there a
how
code,
big- how
is there a
big- yeah,
code
yeah,
or
is there a
something on
code
that?
or something?
I don't have the answer to
Don't
that.
know.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
I don't have the answer, but I'm happy to research
if
that.
Well, that's outside of this, though, I would think, because it's on their private property, so it'd have
I
to
under-
meet the code standards for
Okay,
the
that's,
property.
I didn't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And that was 2 hours ago I was asked that.
I would,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, having dealt with a thing years ago that we dealt with, I think other than in certain zones where there's airport height restrictions. There are certain restrictions in parts of the community on.
Yeah, no, I
but-
just, I don't wanna,
but
I don't wanna spend any
I
time
don't think
on
beyond
it,
that,
'cause
I don't
was-
know that there's
if it was
anything.
more
Yeah.
of a-
I can definitely research that. Get-
I don't know if this guy, I think he was probably just busting me up some,
Okay.
but
I think around the airport, we're dealing with about 80 feet.
80 feet, yes.
Yes. that's the standard
in that flight path stuff.
landing
Yeah.
pad.
So if anybody has a pole
Just add
taller than
something on top
80
of it so that it's noticeable.
outside of that area, don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
good.
Well,
Good.
also for like helicopters, things like that.
Yeah.
just,
I'll get the answer for you. I'm curious now too.
Yeah.
well, it did kinda spark some curiosity. I mean, you gotta have
This-
a permit and a plan to set a telephone pole or a utility pole, and, this person's like,
Just to
Oh.
reel us back in from the
Yeah.
weeds a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
here, we're talking about municipal
right,
property,
I got you.
Right,
I
city,
understand, I
city.
understand.
not private. Okay. Anybody else?
Another
Doug?
clarification.
Yeah.
It's a 4-year ordinance.
Yeah, it's sunsets.
Can that be modified prior to that 4 years without any, like, supermajority or anything like that?
Can the full ordinance be modified?
Right.
Is
Yeah,
your
my-
question?
Ordinances can be modified prior to sunsetting with a 2/3 majority.
Correct.
Okay. I just, to be right open, my concern is this is going back and forth some, and if we do this, it's a 4-year thing, and after a year, it's clearly way more than we thought, or something just isn't working out.
Yeah, we can go back at it.
Okay.
Yes. And that was one of the big points too, is to try and establish something so we had guidelines for the future, but also understanding, similar to our constitution, things are gonna change over time, or well, similar to our budgets.
Sounds good.
I'd like to give a little thanks to the workshop group that was there and to the community. They've had quite a bit of input into this, which we have fed through the legal team, and that basically that is the results that we have here in front of us right now. So, as with most ordinances, you live with them and you see what happens, and if you have to make changes down the road, you do. So there's always a way to do that. So, as we just pointed out, so. And, if nothing else, and it sunsets in 4 years, and the council in 4 years can adopt it again and extend it, or change it, or let it sunset.
Mhm.
So, that's what city ordinances do, so. Anybody else have anything they wanna add? Anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the Chapter 65 proclamation, key to the city flag display, and the ceremonial guidelines ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second?
Been moved by Hank and seconded by Craig. Is there any other discussion? No? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? 4-2. 4-2, the motion passes. Okay, thank you very much. Next item is new business to approve the Presque Fire Department funding request for a new ambulance. So we'll start with the city manager to introduce the topic, and then maybe have our fire chief come on in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a request for the Presque Isle Fire Department. It's a very unique opportunity. Currently with our supply chain challenges, as well as really just mostly our supply chain challenges, we're looking at about 12 to 24 months out for new ambulances or new product to come off the line. This is an opportunity where there was an open slot and ambulance already being built, and it's available to us at this time. We currently have roughly $154,899 to put towards the purchase price of $285,000. The remaining $130,101 can be overdrawn from our reserves and then replaced in the 2025 budget. That was the discussion that we had. But I will ask Daryl to come up and give a bit more background as well on the ambulance. Thank you.
So currently, just quick history, in 2017, we started ambulance service. We bought one brand new ambulance, 3 used ambulances. Today, those 3 ambulances has been replaced with 3 more used ambulances. We're just having nightmare maintenance issues with them. They're in the shop all the time, they're down, they're not running. And this really affects our ability to do long distance transfers, which is a good revenue generator. When those ambulances, those 2 that we're having problems with are up and running, we did 4 transfers before they blew up and we started all over again. So when I called around, I talked to Autotronics, we bought ambulances from past. I said, what do you got for used trucks? He said, nothing that you would wanna buy. Our call volume is 3,100 calls a year, so they're on the road. Plus, we're hoping to do Bangor transfers and so on and so forth. I said, what about rebuild, remounts? Take one of our old chassis, the boxes are in good shape, what do you want, can you do that? He goes, yeah, but you're still 12 to 15 months away. Doesn't help us. He said, but what I do have is your spec truck on the line coming out in September. So I said, okay, what happens if I say no, I wait till January? What's my time frame? My price goes from essentially $290 to $325, and it's 2 to 2.5 years wait. So I called around to other services thinking, it's gotta have gotten better, and nobody would give me less than 2-year wait time. And the price, nobody was under $300,000. So, quite honestly, this is a really good deal for the department, for the city. It puts 3 really good trucks in use. It puts a 2017 in use with a brand new motor, and we're good for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And then we don't necessarily have to start looking at new even at that time. Now we can start the remounting process where we take our new boxes, put them on a new chassis, half the cost of a new truck. So I brought this to you just because I think it's a really great deal for us, and it kind of just fell in our lap. And I think we should be taking advantage of it, but I leave that decision to you.
Well, what rolls away once we replace, say we replace this thing, so
So
what
if
are we
we're-
getting rid of? What's offline?
So if we replace this unit, we'll be having 2 units that we will put up for sale. 10, the orange one, the big orange one.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, nobody really likes that truck except one person. And then the other one would be the New Hampshire truck that we just picked up, the 2010. And we would keep the 2016, which is in great shape. So truck-wise, it puts us in real good shape. And
The New Hampshire used vehicle we bought a couple of years ago, what year is that?
that's a 2010.
2010. Oh, so, okay, so that's the oldest one
That's
in the
the
group.
oldest one we have now,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. But in all honesty, it filled a good void, but what I'm finding is we run them enough that used probably isn't the way for us to be going in the first 3 units. The used one at the back end, the 4th one as a reserve, it works for us, but.
So you're chasing warranties. So what do these come with? Brand new for warranties?
These come with the Ford, whatever the Ford manufacturing chassis are, and then the bodies are like paint's like a 10-year warranty. LED lights are a 10-year warranty. They're pretty decent
Drivetrain.
warranties.
Drivetrain.
Drivetrain is whatever the factory would give you, whatever Ford's factory warranty is. So what is it? 3 years, 36,000, something like that.
So by going new, you get 3 years, or
Right.
we're gonna probably beat the mileage before we beat the years.
We will exceed the mileage within probably the first couple of years because this sets us up to do long distance transfers because now we have dependable trucks and we can send one down the road.
Right.
So
They're all
Well-
mechanical. I remember a brand new one
Oh,
that
yeah.
popped the differential in Millinocket
In
on a
Millinocket,
transfer
yes.
not very long ago,
Yeah.
so
But
it
the
was
good-
warranted.
right, the good thing is that costs us nothing but a little downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other good news is too that we've had a significant need of transfers at the hospitals. We've had families that have, said to us, when can you get our loved one to wherever? And now that with the new staffing and your new hours and the plan that we've put in place that's allowed a reasonable way to do that.
Exactly. It used to be staffing
yeah.
allowed us not to be able to do it. Now it's our trucks are not.
Yeah,
allowing us
so,
to do it.
and again, that's a significant part of our revenue model, which we just noted in the other part of the budget is a big part of what's been increasing in the community, so, I'd be for buying this vehicle.
This is going to replace 2 ambulances then? Is that what I heard you say? Or is it just going to replace the
Right,
medic
so we
14?
ordered 2 in 2022.
Yeah.
I got the first one in April of '23. The other one is here now, it's being lettered, so that'll come online, hopefully by the end of the month. This one will come off the line in, I think, October, so we should see it in November. And then once that's online, the two used ones we can put up for sale.
And Medic 14, that's the one that has the blown engine in it?
Medic 14 is the blown engine, but we want to re-engine that because that's the 2016 and that's in great shape, and that'll go into our fourth position. It'll be our reserve.
So you're keeping that one then?
Absolutely. We need to
Okay.
keep 4 trucks. Yep.
The other two that you're getting rid of, those aren't good enough to remount on a newer chassis?
So you could, but our wait time again is like up to 15 months away. And so that doesn't sound like a long time, but that's a lot of transfers that we're probably gonna be turning down because the truck keeps going in and out of the shop. And once that truck goes in for a remount, that takes us down to 3 trucks unless we keep another one of the old ones. So, yes.
So the 10,000 trade, that's off of both, or out of.
Right, I told him I did not wanna trade cause I wanna keep that truck, and he won't give me anything for the orange one because it's big and it's not something.
It's a
that, like,
non-standard.
It's not something the county sees.
Yeah.
We've got the only one around here, so he doesn't wanna take it cause he's afraid he's gonna get stuck with it. But I think that there's, all kinds of market for it. Maybe not in Maine, but across the country, somebody will take it.
So, in all these situations, you'll have at least 4 running trucks,
Correct.
and you run 3 shifts, I guess you wanna call them?
4 shifts.
Okay, so any given day, you've got 4 crews, there we go. You got 4 crews going?
No. So we have 6 on each shift. So 2 ambulances are staffed, the third one is on a callback. So if the ambulances go out, we call people back in to staff the third one.
Okay.
So what the fourth one does, like I said, is there has been times when all 4 ambulances were out. It does happen.
New
But
phone.
what the fourth ambulance does is allows us to do Bangor transfers, Portland transfers, because that still leaves us 3 trucks. We need 3 trucks to handle 911.
Well, that was my concern, to make sure that we've got, basically 1 extra that can just be
Correct.
sitting there.
Yep.
Waiting for the rear end to blow and something.
Right, if something goes down, the fourth one goes in, gets actually put in the rotation. The fourth one usually is not in rotation. It's, in other words, don't take it until it's the last thing here.
Yep.
And that's to extend the life of it. But yeah, 4 ambulances are a must if we wanna continue doing transfers anyway.
So, the thought is that you would almost prepay the difference in a way and then allocate it to next year's budget. So, we discussed surplus a while ago, which we have a considerable amount, I think. Can that difference be allocated out of there and not put any cost towards 2025 budget? I mean, we've got like millions in surplus, right? Like 6 million?
No, only what we can use, about 3.
Okay.
We have to have an emergency fund. The emergency allocation is 3 million.
Yeah, and we have to keep a certain percentage in
Well-
there at all times.
I'm sure there's a way through. That's an emergency. It's an emergency vehicle. You either get it or you're gonna go rent one at
Think-
$1,000
If you have
a
a
day.
family member needing to go to Bangor, it's an emergency.
So if I'm gonna speak for Brad for a second and stuff, I think we've got 154 in the reserve account dedicated for this vehicle. And then we would have to pull the difference from another reserve, or surplus, which we can do.
How much do we put per year in reserve for the ambulances?
What's that now?
How much do we put in reserve each year
So
for ambulances?
we've been putting in 100,000 every year. And that brings me to another point. We need to look at start raising that to 130,000. That allows us to do a truck every 3 years, and then we wouldn't be in this position. Or a remount every 4 years, but we need to get into some rotation. I talked to everybody, and everybody says, "Oh, we're 6 years," and I said, "So how well do you stick to that?" And nobody does. It's whatever we can finance, that's when we replace them. And that's kind of what we've always done is we run it until, hey, it's just not reliable anymore, and I don't dare to take it even to another community on a 911 call. then we're gonna stand here before you and ask for another one.
So you mentioned a couple of times that you're using this as like a revenue stream. How much are you approximately, what are you guys using, making for revenue?
So Brad, you probably can answer that question better than I can.
Revenue for the EMS service is about, top of my head, 1.6.
Yeah, I was thinking 1.4, 1.5.
This year it'll
Yeah.
probably be, it'll end up probably about 1.6.
Yeah, and in all honesty, we haven't really been on the transfers. Like I said, we did probably 4, then the truck went down. And then we finally get that back and we do 2, and then another truck goes down. And so we haven't consistently been pounding on them. And I'll be honest, between the 4 hospitals, we could be doing a trip a day, so.
And they make anywhere between 5 and 10 times what it does to do a trip across town and pick someone up and bring them to the hospital,
Yep.
revenue-wise.
Yeah, it, not only is it a need for the community, but it's a revenue generator for us,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other comments? Anybody like to make a motion then?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the above as presented.
Moved by Jeff,
I'll second it.
seconded by Hank. Is there any other discussion?
I thought we're not gonna take it as surplus. Surplus and reserve is 2 different things.
Correct, we can. I mean, I'll work with Brad on that, and we'll, if you would like to have it allocated out of the surplus account, we can.
I mean, when we collect excess taxes at the end of the year that we're below budget,
Right.
where does that excess taxes go?
The surplus.
When it gets rolled over.
So,
It lands in.
yeah. So like last year, for instance, we had a plow truck, exact same situation.
Mhm.
So when we got to the end of the year, rather than put that in next year's budget, we used surplus from this year to pay the plow truck off completely, and it didn't get financed
Right.
this year.
But
So we can do the exact same thing.
But that was my thought, but where I'm saying is when we set the budget and then come the end of the year, we come in under budget.
Right.
AKA we collected more money.
Right.
Where does that more money go into? Reserve or surplus? Okay, so that's where I wanna take it from, surplus.
Right.
So what'll happen is, in his capital reserve, all of his, there's several line items, there's ambulance replacement, there's EMS supplies, equipment, so forth. So this line will end up being negative, because there's 158,000 in there, we're gonna spend 290, so that'll be negative. So either do it now or at the end of the year, when we everything shakes out, we will replenish, we'll move that negative to a 0. So the 130 will be
Right.
used for surplus.
And but we did with the plow truck
That's
last year.
gonna come from where you want it
Right.
to, which is
Yeah.
surplus.
Yeah, I mean, we've already collected that.
Yep.
Just in case.
Well, then we'll contribute 100,000.
Good points. Thank you. Any other comments? There's a motion on the floor. If there's no other comments, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? 6-0, unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion approved. Next item, under new business, to approve the revision to the administration of government policy. Wow, that sounds really cryptic. Would you like to introduce that, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, I would. I didn't name it the Administration of Government Policy. Just
It's quite a title.
somebody named that back in 1997. That said, so there have been a few revisions to the Administration of Government Policy. It's available on our city website. A few things, just a few updates on it for sure. The Facilities and Forum team have been added and placed in there. As you recall, last year, the decision was made to move the Facilities and Forum under its own director. So that has been put in there, as well as a job description. In addition, asking for the approval to essentially move the current open Economic Development Director position to a Deputy City Manager position or Assistant City Manager position. And they will have oversight of a rebranded office called the Office of Innovation and Development. So
Okay.
essentially, The job duties of the Economic Development Director will transition to a Deputy City Manager, and they will oversee the same type of work with just a bit of an expanded scope. Happy to take any questions.
All right, so open the floor up for council discussion. This is the first time we've seen this, right? This is first move, okay. So this has been, I'll talk about this a little bit, but this has been talked about a little bit over the last several years, certainly before Tyler came to Presque. We have, City of Presque has had assistant city managers in the past. And then the office was vacant for quite a while, which is currently where it's at right now. It's not part of our budget. And we took the city planner position and made it into an economic development director's position, and that served us very well with over $28 million in economic development over 4 years. That current position is empty at the moment, and so I guess there's some advantages or to moving in the other direction. There's certainly an awful lot going on in City Hall, and it's sometimes very difficult for an individual, whether it's a city manager or a planning person or a department head, to be in more than one meeting at the same time. It's a busy place here, and that's part of the reason why where we're at right now, and the success that we've had, I think, over the last 6 or 8 or 10 years, really, is because we've had people that have answered the bell, that have answered the call, and have been receptive to the wants and needs of people that want to move into this area and invest in our town. So I think kudos to you guys for doing that, but you've been a little shorthanded, basically. So I guess that's the only comment that I have about this. It really isn't about the title; it's about the person, right? It always is like that, and what their training and background is, and so on. So, I think these are good ideas that could lead to some continued growth for us. So, I guess that's my only comment. Some of you guys have been seeing this for the first time. If you have some more questions, basically go for it.
I'll chime in as the old guy, coming up on year 12, or actually year 13. When I first started with the city as a councillor, we had a manager and a city manager and an assistant city manager, both. And that was very important at that time. The city manager was very much engaged in some national things. He was part of the International City Managers Association. He was traveling. At the time, Martin was the assistant city manager, and he did many of these things that we're talking about in this job description. But it provided a transitional person in the community, and that was well aware of the staff and the issues and all the things going on at City Hall. So when Jim moved on to Biddeford and got the offer to go there, we didn't have a vacancy, and Martin moved in and then had a good run of nearly a decade of running the city before he's moved on to his new position. But I think in the last few months, we've seen some of the challenges of not having succession planning in place, and having the deputy positions, and having people in positions that are able to step in and do those jobs. We have some very talented people in the city, certainly, but that succession planning, and as an insurance agent, if I didn't say it wasn't important to plan for your future and to have something in place for that. That's my whole purpose in my job. And so I guess, you know, I can speak to the fact that that's probably one of the most important things you can do for your family is to have that plan for what happens when that person isn't there. And they can leave for many reasons. So I don't think that this is unwarranted. I don't think it's excessive. I don't think it's even a bad idea. And certainly by taking the salary that we've already put in the budget, and we've already allocated, and using that towards this position, and making the position part of the development group, which has really been important to us as well. I think it really strikes at two things. It doesn't hire an extra position. It doesn't add to the budget with extra staffing. But I think it fills two very important needs. And so I'm not against the concept, and certainly, you know, the economic impact of not having someone that's there every day working on the economic development part has also been something that's been somewhat a challenge, because we've tasked people all over City Hall with different things that have gone on, because we've had so many development things, and you know, there's so many new businesses in town, and they're doing a great job to answer those questions and to do that, but I think we've also seen those deficiencies in not having one person doing that. So I think this is probably a good thing. And like I say, I saw the value of it a decade ago. So I can certainly see the value in it now.
Anybody else? Quiet room. Anybody like to make a motion?
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the revisions to the administration of government policy.
Second that.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Derek. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0. Thank you very much. The final item under new business for this evening is to approve the request for funding for the Downtown Village Progress Initiative preliminary engineering study. So we'll start with the city manager, and then I think we have a speaker or two.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Quite frankly, there's been significant developments over the last few weeks in regards to our Downtown Village Partnership Initiative. As the public or the community may recall, as well as the council, you've been going through some very preliminary drafts over the past few years. There have been some public sessions held where folks could express their ideas, opinions, thoughts. We are now at a stage where we are being asked to move to preliminary engineering, which would mean that we are truly starting to do the survey. We're starting to engineer essentially the lines on paper. We'll start to get firm, and we'll be able to survey all the needs that we have. Downtown Village Partnership Initiative, this preliminary engineering funding is a 10% match, so we are being asked to match $307,000. So the total cost is $3.07 million for preliminary engineering. And we do have Chris Hellstrom and Ian Galecki here. Ian is going to join us via Zoom, and Chris is here in person to give us a short presentation of their preliminary findings from the study. That said, in addition, we have also been asked by the Maine Department of Transportation if council would like to take up the motion to fully commit to the project. It is a $33 million project in total, of which we will be liable for a 10% match of that, which is $3 million total. So essentially, we have the preliminary engineering on the agenda. We can also put a motion out there for the commitment as well, if you wish.
Thank you very much. So all the technology's being worked out. I think if we are successful in getting a Zoom call in here, it'll be the first time we've ever landed one in front of the city hall.
He was just on here.
Yeah, he's real, and I saw him before the meeting, and so I know that he exists.
His name's not Charlie.
Yeah. Look like he even combed his hair and everything.
Wow. Get all prettied up.
I'll take a moment to apologize for the interruptions. After 12 years, my phone gave up the ghost today, and I've got a new phone, and I have not mastered yet how to turn the volume down on it. So I apologize for the interruptions, guys. And I actually can't turn it off right now.
You can't go to the main screen and then hit your volume button?
There's 3 buttons, well, there's 5 buttons on the side, and I don't have a clue what they all do yet, so.
Can you
I
go-
think I've minimized it to vibrate now, I think, but I'm sorry for the interruptions.
You can always go to settings too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna like find it. I gotta get a new one next week.
I do not like changes,
I tried it.
Yeah.
and I don't like technology. I like motors.
Yeah.
I think I got it.
There he is. Hey.
Louis, does that mean it's only on that TV?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see you.
Now that we know that, do you think we can put it
So it's gonna be
You
off
won't be
of,
able to see anything but me.
it'll be off of Chris's.
Yeah, where did we take it out?
Yeah,
That's the splitter.
Yeah, you should be able to put it back in. So it'll be on both. Try it.
Yeah. I think we can do that, but I also think that, unfortunately, I think the sound is only gonna come out of this computer. It didn't go into the TV before. And I'm honestly not sure why.
You don't have wireless speakers?
Say that again?
You don't have any wireless speakers?
Not with me, no.
Oh, okay.
There's speakers built
Well, we
into the
thought it would
computer.
work.
Oh,
I can go get mine.
yeah, so try changing it to a different input.
I thought we just heard him on this TV.
You did.
But
we
now
did.
can't.
But Louis changed the splitter.
Try like 1 or 3.
So this, I'm on this TV. It's controlling this, it's controlling both TVs.
Right.
This TV's on HDMI.
So you stand real close to this one, and it'll just do that one.
There is your snipping tool.
If it makes you feel any better, I do the exact same thing with the trolley. We have 2 monitors in the trolley, and the front one does one thing, and the back one does something else. Yeah, even when they're hooked together.
Do you have TV?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I haven't been around for a minute, so.
We have it up on the front one. Yeah, we do. We
Yeah.
have both of them.
Just when you turn that front one, just push this one back a little bit and turn the front one sideways a little bit, and then we can just all share the front one.
Oh,
No,
this
we
is-
don't. No, yeah.
Let's just get some
Because
pop.
this one remote is controlling both, but it's not there.
There you
There
are.
you go.
Are you both now?
Do you?
Nope.
No,
We have seen this in the past too, where we've had one monitor successful, but the other
We should
one
have bought
doesn't.
2 different brains.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Craig, that was
Let's just get some popcorn and watch
suggested by
Scooby-Doo.
Neil a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
You done good, kid.
Or you could swap.
See, that's why we hired this young guy to come run the city, because he knows about this electronic stuff.
So at this time, I'd like to have Chris talk to us from TY Lin, and he can introduce the subject a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I apologize in advance here for what will probably be some ongoing technical difficulties. So this is Ian from Bureau of Planning at Maine DOT. He is here today representing the department. Jared, who most of you have met, has fallen ill and was unable to make the trip today. So we have Ian filling in. So just in really quick general terms, for about the last 16 to 18 months, the city and Maine DOT have been working together on the Village Partnership Initiative, which is a planning effort to identify infrastructure improvements that are aimed at generating economic growth and overall improvements to the downtown. And the stage that we're at now is the planning study has been complete, final report's been delivered, and we need to move into the PE phase, which stands for preliminary engineering. So
That's the next step from the planning level that we've sort of completed to date. The PE phase includes actual survey, utility coordination, environmental coordination. Really, that's the stage that puts sort of pen to paper with respect to developing plans and actually putting out something that a contractor could bid on and build. So there is a funding piece to the PE effort that Ian will talk about. And Ian's got a presentation here that he's going to share his screen. You'll be able to see the slides. We can talk a little bit about what are the improvements, what's the study area, and then probably the most important part that's sort of the most germane to this conversation is what has to happen to move forward with the preliminary engineering. So Ian, to be very transparent with you, I can't see you on my laptop, but I can see you on the TV. Are you able to share your screen and show the slides?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
If you put the microphone down to your speaker, maybe it'll. How about now?
Well, it's going to sound like you're in a cave, but go
I
ahead.
mean, I'm kind of in a cave, so it's all good. Let me just pull up the screen. There, excellent.
Preliminary study, that was the word I wanted.
All right, can you guys see the
Yeah, looks good.
slide?
Yep.
The intro slide? All right, perfect. So I'm just going to go through this again. Apologies that Jared couldn't make it. He was feeling pretty fine yesterday, and then just deathly ill this morning. So I'll probably give a less lively presentation than he would have, but I'll do my best for you, and I'll try to keep us going here. So yeah, this is just info on the Village Partnership Initiative. Just a quick outline for the presentation. We'll just go over quickly the program philosophy and goals for the VPI, although I'm guessing Jared's already gone over that with you guys before, so I won't spend too much time there. We'll run through the scope of the VPI, which again I believe has been presented a few times, so I won't spend an enormous amount of time going through each one of those. But if there's any questions, you guys can direct them to Christopher or myself, although I probably have a less detailed understanding of the project. And then we'll get into the process and steps, talk about the plan phase, where we're at with that, preliminary engineering, and then our upcoming grant application that we're trying to move forward with this for construction funds. And then just next steps and timeline. So just a reminder about the kind of purpose behind the Village Partnership Initiative, which I won't spend a whole bunch of time on. It's a new program. We just started this a few years ago at Maine DOT with the launch of the bipartisan infrastructure law, mostly because of the significant increase in federal discretionary funding that lets us, go beyond just kind of trying to repair our basic infrastructure, keep the system in a state of good repair, but also look at places where we could be doing a little more, especially as our commissioner likes to say, making the places that we're going a place you want to be. And so these Village Partnership Initiatives, they focus on downtowns and more built up areas, trying to restore kind of some of the vibrancy to those areas with what we can do as a transportation agency. So this is the scope of the Presque study as it currently stands. It's along the Main Street and Route 1 corridor, as well going across the river along across Presque Stream to 163 and north. And some of the services that we're looking at: improved pedestrian facilities and connections, road rehab, pedestrian bridge, placemaking, wayfinding, lighting, safety improvements.
Ian, can I add a little bit to that slide real quick?
At any point that you wish to add something, if I say something that's totally off, you feel free to.
Not totally off by any stretch. But for those of you that have been to the first couple of public meetings that recognize that this picture looks slightly different, I just would point out that this is sort of an in-progress plan that really depicts the beginnings of what would be a survey request for the project. So Many of you are probably familiar with a slightly different map. What I would emphasize here is that the project extends from the pedestrian crossing in Umpy essentially to Maysville Street. There's consideration on Parsons Street for a multi-use path and a new pedestrian bridge that would cross the stream. Potentially behind Walmart, there's an alternative location near Memorial Park by North Street. That's not depicted here. And there are also multiple connections to the existing bike path, potentially utilizing Blake Street or Rice Street, or both, depending on the exact layout of the new pedestrian bridge that aren't depicted here. So I just wanted to point out that if this picture looks different than what some of you may have seen, that's why. Go ahead, Ian, thanks.
Alright. And then the next couple of slides are just running through the different areas. And again, if there's any questions or Christopher, if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, I'll give just a quick overview. So the project is broken down sort of in section, beginning at the south end. So the treatment, in very general terms, in the area between Umpy and Maple Street, is a conversion to a two-lane section. So there's currently 2 lanes going out of town, southbound. So 3 lanes overall. That's depicted. I realize the picture's small. That's what's depicted in the lower right there. This is a theme that is utilized throughout the project. The reduction in lanes allows for a repurposing of the existing width into an esplanade and a multi-use path, and that's what's shown sort of in sort of a street view rendering in the center there, and then in a section on the left.
And to clarify, Chris, those are conceptual drawings?
Yeah, this is very planning level. I mean, these are straight out of our report from our planning study, so this is very conceptual. You know, as you can see, we've overlaid some CAD work on aerial photos and used literally just field measurements of existing dimensions to kind of lay out what's there now and what could be conceptually developed.
Thank you.
So you said you're over behind Walmart. Where is that going to affect the four-wheeler trail that's over there? Or are you going to be anywhere close to that?
Specifically, the one potential location for the pedestrian bridge comes off near, I still call it the Dragon Plant. I'm not sure exactly. Conley Street, I think, is what it is.
Trombley's, yeah.
And then it's Trombley's now. Yeah, that's the spot.
Dragon Drive.
It's Dragon Drive. Yeah. So that comes in. What we're showing here conceptually is a crossing of the stream there that would come in behind Walmart and connect a sidewalk to Main Street, really in the area where the sidewalk sort of ends now.
Right.
So there are some conceptual ideas for multi-use trails that either develop unimproved trails now, like sort of in behind Bonanza potentially, or utilize existing ATV trails. But again, I would emphasize that that's very conceptual at this point. Go ahead, Ian.
So the next one, this shows the downtown section.
So the downtown section, again, we have a 4-lane section that goes from basically Maple Street all the way up through. This concept takes the 4-lane section and creates a 3-lane section using a center double left turn lane from Maple Street to the Blake Allen intersection near the Park Street Bridge. And that allows repurposing of existing width for several different things. One use in the immediate southern area from Maple to Chapman is an extension of a multi-use path that would connect the existing bike path to the rec center facilities. And then from Chapman Street north, it is a widening of sidewalks on both sides and a widening of the existing parking on both sides. That's sort of how what lane that's being removed is repurposed. So it's a normalizing of the existing parking and a significant increase in sidewalk width on both sides, about 4 feet on both sides. What's shown there in the center is a plan view sort of concept for Riverside Drive. So the project encompasses Main Street. It also extends to the west on Riverside Drive, State Street, and then to Parsons Street, as we sort of previously mentioned. The concept at this point converts Riverside Drive North to a one-way. And the concept shown on the right there is again a repurposing of that width to a multi-use area in the area where trailer trucks park now, to multi-use, an area for possibly food trucks, recreation, extended green space, and an extension of a segment of multi-use path that would connect to the bike path via either Blake or Allen Street. Go ahead, Ian.
That's the same section
Yeah,
there, I
that's-
believe.
Yeah, this is Riverside Drive South. This is again a very conceptual drawing that Jared put together. This is a possible demonstration project that is one option for installing sort of a low-cost improvement to have a multi-use path along what is an existing width that is pretty extreme for the use of Riverside Drive South at this point. So those removable bollards there, that's what's depicted in that picture. Go ahead, Ian. And moving out to the west, so this is a view of both State Street Bridge and the everyone calls the Five Fingers of Death intersection. We're just sort of calling it Five Fingers intersection, but I think everybody knows that spot.
Just for clarification, it is actually our safest intersection in Prescott.
Yeah, I will.
For the community.
I can vouch for the fact that it's not a high crash location by Maine DOT standards, and we looked at potential improvements. I'll talk about that intersection first. There were 3 options considered for that intersection. That intersection is somewhat complicated by the fact that there are 5 legs, and you can go left or right onto any of the other legs from any of the legs that you're on. So it's kind of unique in that sense. One consideration was do nothing, essentially, leave it as it is. One consideration was a roundabout intersection. Some may have seen those down south. Or the option that's currently on the table is a closing of a short segment of Dyer Street and teeing that off into Parsons Street. The advantage of that option that's shown here is it utilizes some park space for some increased green space, and it significantly simplifies pedestrian movements across State Street and onto Parsons Street, which also has some excessive existing width, to introduce a new segment of a multi-use path on Parsons Street, which is why there's a bridge proposed across the street. On the right-hand side there, that would be a section view of the proposed option on State Street. Again, State Street, a lot of existing excessive width, 4 lanes isn't necessary there for the volume. So that's a reconfiguration to a 2-lane with a path and a treatment over the bridge. So really unique treatment there that's sort of an extension of Riverside Park onto the bridge and across to the green space that you see in the Dyer Street reconfiguration.
So how are all these changes going to affect the level of truck traffic that comes through there, or construction equipment?
Well, the level of truck traffic, meaning the existing volume?
Yeah.
Well, the existing volume is projected for a 10 to 20 year increase. So these concepts look at a growth model that projects existing traffic out 10 to 20 years. And the geometry that you see here is laid out for all the sort of standard design vehicles.
And Chris, just to clarify as well, the data that you're using it assumes that the second piece of the bypass is complete, correct?
Yeah, there's a part of the input of the growth model assumes that the second phase of the bypass is complete, and there's an assumption about reduction in traffic on Main Street based on people using that.
I was talking about the trucks that are coming out of Ashland, because they aren't gonna have access to that bypass. And so they're gonna come through there, and then they're gonna take and hang a left up on Parsons and go over around the corner.
Yeah, no, it's understood.
Yeah, as well as any of the construction companies and things that are up there that have CDL trucks and all that.
Yep, no, I understand your point. I think we can go to the next slide, Ian. This,
You want to touch on this?
yeah, I'll take this one. So this is one of the last slides. So this is a really zoomed out view. The takeaway here, the black is the existing bike path, and the white segments are proposed multi-use segments. So the lower one near the southern end, that's the Main Street section. That's the connection to the rec center facilities, Riverside Park area now. And then moving north, you can see the segment on Parsons Street with two potential options for crossing the river to get back over to Main Street, and potential connection of the bike path via Riverside Drive and Blake Street, potentially Allen Street, and one or the other connecting to the bike path up by the high school. Go ahead, Ian. Yeah, so this is you, Ian. I want you to take this one.
Sure, by all means. So, with all that, just kind of a summary of where funding is at currently and what we're proposing for steps forward if we decide to proceed with PE and then with construction. You can see the VPI phase was $152,000. That was split evenly between state and municipal funds. The current estimate for PE is $3,070,000. And I believe you guys have forms there, printouts of this from an earlier version of the slides. On our end, we've been moving around some of the federal state share for PE, but we're committed to a combination of federal and state funds up to 90% for PE. Right now, that federal amount that I have there, $2,456,000, that incorporates the $1.2 million CDS for this area, and we're working to identify additional federal funds within what we have available currently. I've gotten confirmation just over the last day or two from my bosses that that's a commitment that the department we're confident on that. And the state and federal shares might shift slightly here or there, but we're sticking at our 90%. We'll make that work on our end. And so for that PE, what we're asking for from the city is $307,000 to move forward with all of the elements of PE that were mentioned earlier, so that we can get this moving forward towards something that is, biddable and constructible. I'll then go into the construction. The estimated construction cost for the full project is $30,700,000. And we're proposing taking the same approach, basically an 80-20 federal, non-federal split, and then dividing the state and municipal sections evenly for the non-federal split. So looking for $24,560,000 in federal funds, and then $3,070,000 in state and municipal funds to make up the non-federal required match. And we'll get into the grant that we're proposing, that we're working towards applying for now, but we're fairly optimistic about this. In terms of PE, those federal funds, that's not a problem. Those are either in hand or we'll be able to make sure that they're properly programmed. For construction, we'd be looking for a lot of discretionary funding for that, and we think this project would be a very strong candidate, and we're very optimistic about its chances to get full funding or at least that 80% funding for federal. And we're committed to that. For the municipality, we would not be asking for, we're trying to lock in that 80-10-10 split. That's the approach we're trying to take with these projects, with these federal discretionary funds for VPIs, and we're optimistic about this. I think it's.
Chris, I don't know if Ian can hear me. You might have to relay.
Yeah, I will.
But
I can kind of hear you.
In terms of statewide projects, Presque is not the only VPI project in the state, but This is a pretty large one for our backyard. How does it rank around the state? I mean, are we in the top 2, 3, 5 projects in the state in terms of construction costs?
Ian,
In
did you
terms of
hear all that?
construction costs?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I heard most of it.
Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, I can't actually see you, but I'll respond and just try to go this way.
Not much.
Okay.
I'd say that this is not that far beyond the normal for these. Most of the federal discretionary type projects along these lines, including some of the other VPIs that we've gotten, they've hovered around the $25 million mark to $30 million. This is roughly what we would kind of expect for a project of this scale. It's not that much outside the ordinary. I don't have the exact numbers, but last year we were awarded a Reconnecting Communities grant, which is what I'll get into in a second, what we're hoping to apply for this one, for Libby Town in Portland, one of the kind of a neighborhood by one of the I-295 interchanges on that peninsula. And I think that was a similar cost to this one. And we did get awarded that one. So I think that in terms of the overall cost, it's certainly not a small project, but it's not outside the realm of stuff that we've done in other places, including Sanford and Wyndham. Both were VPI projects or VPI type projects that were awarded roughly this amount, maybe a little less in some cases, but it's in the ballpark in terms of funding.
Questions, guys? Well,
And
Ian's on the phone.
We have printouts of all this?
So, we've seen a lot of the planning, if you will, and some of the proposals of the paths downtown and the lane widths and the things like that. How much of that is going to be necessary that we have reduced lanes, that we have the utilization of that multi-use path downtown, that we don't modify those significantly, because I don't know that the public has really commented on that yet in any great way, and I'm not sure that they're going to like it. So if we commit to this now, what's the chances that the public has some sway in saying we aren't crazy about what you've designed so far at all? And
Well, we had 2 public hearings, so we followed our typical process, and Ian can weigh in on this, but there's a pretty standard public process for VPIs. So we had 2 public meetings. We had one in June, which was primarily to discuss the existing conditions and talk about really what we see as sort of the existing template.
Right.
And then in October, we had the second public meeting. So we always do 2 for this type of study, and that's where we presented the recommendations that are contained in the final report, more or less verbatim. So,
Right.
So they've been both the existing conditions and these recommendations that you see here have been presented to the public. We had the meeting at Umpy back in October. So there would be, to answer your question, I think to partly answer your question, Craig, when the project goes into the PE and then construction phase, Maine DOT, it would become a project with the highway program through the Bureau of Project Development, and they would have a public process similar to any construction project like the Presque bypass or anything like that, where there's a public meeting that's held that says, these are the plans, this is what we intend to bid, this is what we intend to build, this is the schedule. That's some time off in the distance, obviously, but there would be a public process associated with the PE and construction phase as well.
Okay. But as far as, there's been some significant things that, that people have brought to me that I wrote, that I've discussed with you folks, and I don't feel like any of those things have been addressed at all. In fact, I think they're exactly what was presented on day one is what we're still seeing today without much modification. And I guess my concern is I think that there's going to be some significant pushback by the public to some of this without some final design is saying this is what it's gonna look like.
No, that's exactly what that's what the PE and construction phase public process is for.
Okay.
Um,
So I guess my point is that we aren't necessarily committing to the preliminary report that you've given us, that there still can be some significant changes to this if we move ahead with this. Is that
I'm not sure if I would commit to the word significant necessarily, and Ian can weigh in on this, because part of the grant application is the final report from the planning study. So, you know, I would say that the planning study is exactly that. It's a planning level look at potential concepts.
Okay.
When we have actual survey in hand and we get to the point where we're actually, to be transparent, designing this on the computer, you know, in CAD, we're actually
Right.
looking at what the existing conditions are as surveyed. Are there potential modifications? I would say yes, but conceptually, the core concepts that we're talking about here are what are going to be included in the grant application. And that's actually the last, one of the slides that, I think Ian's actually got a couple more slides
Okay.
here. You want to talk about the grant, Ian?
Sure, yeah, and we can circle back to
Yeah, sure.
some more of that if it works for everyone, but I'll just finish up my little bit here. So just we've already been talking about this, but process, we're in the plan phase now, and the next phase would be preliminary engineering, which we'd like to kick off relatively quickly, if you all are, you know, in agreement with process for going forward. And that would involve utility coordination, right-of-way, survey, NEPA review. That's the environmental review, which is a required part of any project like this that's funded with federal funds. And then the idea being to get to final engineering for this with PE. What I kind of mentioned is we are, right now, the federal government, USDOT is accepting applications for the Reconnecting Communities grant. And that is something that, you know, pending your guys', you know, agreement to move forward with any of this, we think would be a good fit for this. So just in that grant application, they don't give us a huge amount of time with these things, but the application is due September 28th. Were we to be selected for that funding, that would happen mid-January of next year. And then we would work on a grant agreement with the city, and that would likely happen mid-June to October of next year. And then what we'd be looking at were we to have construction funds for this. We try to aim for the 2028 construction season. What we want to do, because we think that this principally it works, including some of these elements like lane reductions and things, assuming that we're taking some of that traffic off of Main Street and Route 1 with the bypass, is a staggered approach. So once that bypass is complete, then we move into this. And were we to get those funds, they would have to be obligated in time for that. But we think that that works with the overall time frame for both the bypass project and this one. I should note, so just to be clear, the Reconnecting Communities grant that we're looking to apply for is a 50-50 federal, non-federal grant. So it could max out at 50% of the total project cost for construction. But we are committed to finding other federal funds to make up that remainder. What that grant allows, it says you can only use up to 50% Reconnecting Communities funding for the total project cost, but you can supplement other federal monies up to 80% of the total. So you can take the 50% Reconnecting Communities, add another 30% other federal funds, and then you get left with, if I'm doing my math right, 6 and 8, the same kind of split that I showed earlier, an 80% federally funded project with then us committing to 10% and then the municipality at another 10% of the total project cost for construction. And again, we feel good about that. And in terms of, you know, prioritization for this project, this is the one that we're going for this one. If we're, you know, if the town wants to, if the city wants to proceed.
For
this is Maine
clarification,
DOT's, this is what we got in the
is
queue
one
for this
project.
application, if we want to go forward with it. But again, the construction wouldn't happen for several years, which is usually how these discretionary grants go. So what we're asking for you guys, the biggest thing is if we want to proceed with PE, and we do want to pursue this Reconnecting Communities grant, we need to get going relatively quickly, because we have to get to a certain level of PE completion by next year, which we believe we can do if we move forward now. We'd be looking at kicking off PE next month, so that would involve us kicking our contracts people into high gear and getting an agreement with you guys. If you vote in favor of committing that local share, then Jared will work with city staff to get a cooperative agreement in place for preliminary engineering, and we'll really get things kicked off on our end, get it to project development, and start moving. And what we would also like to ask as part of the application for the full project for the construction funds, that they'll need a letter of commitment from the city saying they want to pursue this project and that there's funds that you're willing to commit towards that. And again, that's not saying you have to produce those funds right now, but saying that it would be a commitment to do that if we were to be selected for it, and then move forward with construction. So yeah, that's where we're at. I know that's all relatively tight, but unfortunately with these grants, a lot of times they come out and we gotta move quickly. So yeah, that's my ask. That's not me. But once Jared's back and healthy, he's gonna continue to kind of help out with this process. And no one cares about that. And that's the end of my little slideshow. So I'll stop sharing, but I can pull it back up if need be.
Sure.
So that's kind of where we're at. And to kind of go back to the question about to what degree of changes are possible, I'd say it's basically like it narrows down the further along the process you get, right? Like at this initial feasibility level where we're kind of just coming up with what we'd like to see, what the local community would like to see in the area, there's a lot of flexibility. But as we go further down the line, the degree to which we can be flexible starts to shift, and it becomes narrower and narrower the more work that we do on a specific project. There's still room in PE, for instance, if we come to a realization that a certain facility is it's a no-go. It can't work. We can try to modify it a bit. But if it is moved to the point where we start taking out large components of the project and a lot of kind of like the heart of what's there gets pulled out, that becomes challenging. And it certainly, once you get to the level of like having applied for something for a grant funding, then that would also become, that's even more challenging, because if we are saying that we're going to do X, Y, and Z, there's room to move around a bit. But, if we were to pull out 30 to 40% of the project that we said that we were going to use the funds for, the federal government might ask us, well, why did you need all of that? So I'd say that, yeah, it's kind of like a funnel. The closer you get to completion, the less and less your room to maneuver.
So what
Is
kind
that-
of time frame would we have if we wanted to discuss changes or to do anything different? Before we
Sorry, I didn't hear.
There was a question about sort of time frame for discussion of potential changes. I think the essence of the question, I think the funnel analogy was perfect. I think the essence of the question is, when does the funnel sort of start to neck down?
Right, and that's, I guess, one of the point I'm getting at is,
What
time frame do we have before we get to that end of funnel where there's no more discussion?
Well, what's the end of the PE period?
That would be 90% design, right? I mean, that's
I would say there are some key milestones along the design process that we would want to consider. The first one, which is really critical to the grant application is sort of the 30% level that we usually refer to with this acronym called PDR, which stands for Preliminary Design Report. So the 30% level, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to facilitate the grant application, the 30% level is like a February, March sort of time frame?
February.
February, okay. So at 30%, just to explain the difference between, you know, what happens at 30 versus 60 versus 90. At 30%, I'd say in general, there's some wiggle room. At 60%, which would be, I'd say, several months later from the February timeframe, there's less wiggle room. And the key reason there is that Maine DOT has a milestone that's about a 60% level that they call plan impacts complete. And what that really means is that the people designing the project, that's when they put their pencils down. And the lines on the paper that say, this right-of-way line's going here, this wetland impact line is going there, they don't get moved after that. And so the people that work internally, which is one of the reasons the process takes so long, the designer puts their pencils down, and then all the environmental and right-of-way and utility coordination staff at DOT go to work. And that takes like a year and a half. And so the pencils go down, and those people go and permit and acquire rights and coordinate utilities on what that is at that time. So to answer your question, I would say the 60% level is kind of the pencils down sort of time. And I would say that would be, you know, based on a February at 30%, that's probably a late in the year 25 sort of time frame. Now, I think that an important component to the PE process prior to even getting to a 30% level, maybe some sort of public outreach, you know, some sort of component of understanding as we gather existing conditions survey data, you know, what are these potential reconfigurations that the city is looking for? You know, I think that's the time to understand that. The other thing I would point out in general terms is that the aim of the project and the aim of the whole program is to leverage federal funding to build infrastructure improvements to generate economic growth. And we talked about growth sort of in the beginning of the meeting, you know, so there's a component to the entire program that the Village Partnership Initiative is aimed to achieve, which is, can you leverage a significant portion of federal funding to build infrastructure improvements that would sort of generate, you know, that sort of growth that we talked about. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, that's one of the reasons that you're here for the first time ever via Zoom in the Presque City Council chambers. In general, the way the numbers shake out is it's a 90-10 match across the board, not only for PE but for construction. So you're talking about a $30 million construction project for $3 million. So that's I would say that's a unique funding opportunity.
So let me just ask you a couple of questions. So as far as like wiggle room items, if we don't want to do, just say the public says, no way, we don't want 3 lanes on Main Street and we want to stick with 4 lanes, is that, number one, an item that could be accomplished? Number 2, this path or corridor, multi-use path from Umpy down through the center of town, that's going to have trees and an esplanade, if you will. If that's a item that they just don't want, is that a wiggle room item we could just eliminate completely from the project? And this third item is, if we want to keep 4 lanes across State Street Bridge and not do that you've proposed here, is that a wiggle room item that we could just remove from the project? Because I guess those are just kind of major points that I've heard from the public that they're not too sure of, and I just want to know if those items are not wiggle room items, then I'm a hard no on this project, frankly.
I mean, I'd say that probably what's the best thing, the best approach to this, the purpose of where we are now in this, you know, planning and feasibility level thing is to identify those concerns. I wouldn't lean completely on PE to be the place to iron those out. You know, every time we go forward with doing work, design work, especially if we're going to be going in for a grant application, you know, now is a better time to try and like say, are we going to go forward with X or Y for like the major core components of it? There's always, in every one of these are years long processes, and people, you can have the best public outreach in the world and someone's new concerns are going to come up.
Right.
But like big ticket ones, I mean, what we would like to see before we, you know, part and parcel of going forward with PE or going forward with a grant application is does this project meet the needs of the city? And, you know, if there are major components then that people are uncertain about, you know, that needs to be addressed now. Now, that may mean it's not for me to say what should and shouldn't be in the thing. That's the purpose of this, is to try to help a local vision come to fruition.
That's
But
kind of why I was addressing the truck traffic, because when you have truck traffic coming from Mechanic Street, turning off onto State Street and going across the bridge into that four-way intersection, if you've only got 3 lanes, I mean, that's tight enough now with 4 lanes. You got 3 lanes, that truck's not even gonna be able to make that right and get up in there. They hit Main Street and then head back south.
Can I ask some basic questions here?
sure.
Yeah.
Who gave the guidelines to design this? And I guess what is you've expressed the intent is economic development. Does that directly have to do with pedestrian traffic?
In terms of the guidelines, this is, you know, this was developed as part of a scope with the city and Jared, our regional planner, a while back. It's actually, I have actually been, just to note, you said this was my first time here. I was at the meeting where Jared, I believe, first presented on this possibility to the city council. I want to say 2 years ago.
No, I
Now?
remember it. From what I remember, I don't think anyone on this council has given the idea of knocking Main Street down to 1 lane. I don't think any of us have recommended that. That was presented to us almost as an assumption at the first very early designs.
Oh, that was before.
It's 1 travel lane in each direction and a left turning lane in the middle,
Right.
or
So,
which doubles as an emergency lane.
so you're telling me that there were numerous people, city representatives, that wanted that asked for that.
The traffic flow currently does not support 4 lanes. 2 lanes in each direction is not supported by the traffic flow
Really?
Do you
currently.
have the traffic data, Chris? Because the 4 lanes, and I'm sorry to interrupt here, guys, but the 4 lanes that we have now were when we had Loring Air Force Base
Yep.
and tens of thousands of more cars traveling each day. It's been significantly reduced. Do you have that?
I don't have it at my fingertips, but what I can tell you is that
That's my
the configuration of Main Street now functions well within Main DOT standard in terms of queuing and delay at intersections. And based on the modeling, based on the 10 to 20 year projection, which assumes use of the completed bypass, the 3-lane configuration that's shown here, again, functions within standard limits. So,
I mean, you're assuming that there's going to be a bypass, which I understand that, but you want economic development within the town. I don't think I'm abnormal in saying that if I'm going to get bottlenecked coming down by Umpy, I'm going to say, screw that, I'm not going through town. I'm taking the bypass, and then I've completely diverted every store in Presque Isle, and you have completely taken me off the radar of buying anything there.
Their data doesn't show that there's a bottleneck, Doug.
Kevin, you go down there at lunchtime.
I travel it 5 times a day back and
Yeah.
forth from 108 Main Street.
How can you
I'm
say that
fully
would not
aware.
cause a problem?
You can fire a cannon down through there and not hit a car in most of the hours of the day.
At 3 in the morning, maybe.
Nope. Nope. You can do it all day long.
Yeah.
So,
It's a
so
difference
you think
of
this
opinion.
Is acceptable for 10, 20
Absolutely.
years? Wow.
Absolutely. The only question that I have that has been sort of skirted around this evening, and I think Hank's comments a little bit of it, and Doug's comments a little, and Craig's comments a little bit of it, is farm equipment. So we've got farm equipment that does travel through the city sometimes during daylight hours. And some of them are gonna address the State Street Bridge. So if we've got 2 lanes and some bollards or some flower arrangements or something there, we would probably wanna make sure that those 2 lanes are gonna accommodate a pretty large size piece of farm equipment.
Well, either that, or you're gonna have to divert coming off Mechanic Street and make sure all of that traffic is going Parsons and then up and around the corner heading towards the other intersection.
Which you know, that's a great point, Hank, and a lot of those trucks are more or less getting used to that idea right now, particularly going towards Easton and towards Points North. But we still have to address Points South. Like, you leave Mapleton and you wanna go to Holton.
Yeah, well, you got that off the State
Right.
Street Bridge, yeah.
So you're exactly the way it is right now. There's no change presented at State and Main. That corner stays the same. There's gonna be 2 lanes of traffic for that truck to move into the center emergency lane plus the right-hand southbound lane. And if I could go back to the thing about retail and commerce, some of the most highest traffic incidences we have is with parked vehicles in Presque. And that's because the parked vehicles, the lanes that they're parking in are so narrow.
You talking about crash incidents?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. or
Right,
take out
so,
mirrors and-
so this plan is to enable those parking areas to be much wider than they are right now. Chris has mentioned about the sidewalk being wider, but they're also talking about widening the parking lanes so that a vehicle can go on in without potentially pulling in their left-hand mirrors, like many of them do right now. Because we've got 2 lanes of traffic, and then we've got a very narrow parking lane in front of our retail locations. So that's being addressed in this plan as well. And that should lower that statistic of crash incidences, is that what you call it, Chris?
Yeah, you're right on.
Right.
I mean, one of the highest crash locations on Main Street is right near the Brayton. And when you dig into the data, it's exactly what you said. It's mirrors getting taken off cars.
Right.
Where we hashed out the lanes.
You've mentioned the assumption of the bypass being completed. Is that even on the schedule to begin construction, or is that set in stone to actually come to?
Yeah, Ian, if you want to address that, you can. You want to talk
He
about?
may not have heard it, Chris.
Ian, the question is the schedule for the Presque bypass. What I can tell you from my own memory is that the second phase of the bypass is in the main DOT work plan, which means it's funded for construction. I believe it's set to advertise late 25 for a construction start in 26. But if you want to, do you have anything to add to that, Ian, related to construction schedule of the second phase of the Presque bypass?
That's correct. It's in our work plan. Funds are programmed for it. It's going to happen. I believe you're correct. It's scheduled to bid for 26, with a completion in 27, I believe. And this project would not happen until after it. That's a core component of our approach to this. If we do move forward with any kind of lane reduction or something like that, it's going to happen after that, removing some of the through traffic so that the people that are on Main Street, it's not competing with, people who would just be going past. Anyway, so it's a bit of a release valve, and that enables us to then do something different with this street. But the bypass is programmed funding. It's in our work plan, and we are moving forward with that.
So I think, and Chris, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the bypass is predicted to pull about 2,000 cars a day off of Main Street.
Then that's in round numbers. Yeah, we modeled it as a 10 to 15% reduction.
Right. And the 4 lanes that were produced in that we currently use was built in 1984, when we had significantly more population and more traffic in town, and the traffic counts are not that as high now, and they're going to continue to drop when the bypass is done by about 2,000 cars. And that's why I know it's not easy for people to wrap their heads around the lane reduction strategy, but that is the way to better utilize the land and the spaces, and to slow traffic down. Because right now, when the light turns green, it's game on. It's who gets to the corner first if you're southbound. And the speed continues all the way past the University of Maine, and it continues past my business going out of town. The lane reduction is the solid strategy to reduce the speed in the downtown area and make it more safer for pedestrians. So that's it. If 12 people say, I want to stay 4 lanes, and 11,000 people say, you know what, that's going to be a safer way to go, and the science proves that, and the engineering people that we've hired to do this prove that, that's the way we're going to go. And if 12 people don't like it, they have to get used to it. We're not talking about one-way streets here. We're not talking about redesigning things like our neighbors up the street did 3 decades ago. We're talking about enhancing the opportunity to have a nicer looking Main Street, a more safer Main Street, and more pedestrian friendly street, and hopefully a safer downtown Main Street. That's what VPI is all about. It's also about leveraging money. We're going to put 10 cents on the dollar, and everybody else is going to put 90 cents on the dollar in. And this is a once in a lifetime generational opportunity that we can't afford to say no to.
Have the businesses along that stretch been asked what they think of this proposal?
No.
Because that's gonna directly affect them the most.
So that's a great question, and that's part of the PE process. So that's a key component, so there, not only is there a public hearing for the construction and PE phase, but there's a right-of-way process where negotiators sit down with them and have those conversations. To answer your question about conversations up front, I think Kevin himself, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you may have talked to some business owners, but I think there are probably some additional conversations to be had there.
Has anyone talked to Daryl? He's in the crowd now. So what do you think about the middle of winter, turning your fire truck down a 24-foot wide entire road with 2 cars on it?
So, I'm not an engineer, and I have real concerns with 3 lanes and us getting vehicles down through Main Street. For us, it's not about the crashes on Main Street, it's us going on Main Street, the fire trucks and ambulances.
I mean,
That's just my concern is that I see what it's like now at times for us to get down through there. It just kind of makes me nervous about 3 lanes. But again, I'm not an engineer, but it's a concern. But I think I mentioned this once before. If the city's going to go this direction, I think one of the important things to help us, we can't use side streets, they're too narrow, and that's just going to put the public at risk. But they make GPS tracking systems for the emergency lights or for your street lights that we control as emergency vehicles, which would allow us to keep green lights as we're going, which keeps traffic moving.
And the current construction cost estimate includes that all the way up through.
Okay, so that is a key element, and it can't be the Tomar light system, it's gotta be the GPS unit, because we have the light system now, and it's just very effective. Fog, heavy snow, it doesn't have to.
So that's a great point. You did bring that up. I remember Rick, I sat beside you that day. So one component to mention that's included in the 30.7 million is signal upgrades at all the signalized intersections within the area. So from Chapman Street to Maysville Street, those are upgraded signals, which would include the system that he's talking about.
And that gives us free pass down through.
Hey, Chris, can I ask you, how much, do we have a breakdown of the total infrastructure cost? Because I know this does replace our 1911 vintage on Main Street. Do we know the total amount of cost that's going specifically to infrastructure?
I'm not sure if I understand your question exactly. What?
Talking about the water, sewer, everything under Main Street that was developed that is currently of 1911 vintage?
The water and sewer systems are not something that we looked at specifically as part of our design. That's a key piece of coordination that would need to happen during the project.
Are they part of the 30 million?
They're part of the,
Not the water and sewer, no.
okay.
That was the impression I
What
was
about,
That was the
what about the water basins?
The drainage system is owned by the state. It becomes a municipal maintenance obligation after the state constructs it, so this is a routed road. So drainage, the entire section of Main Street that we're talking about here would receive not only new drainage, but all new road base as well, which is something that frankly I think is long needed. So rather than just a pavement overlay sort of treatment like we've seen just recently, actually just this summer, this would be what we would call a full depth reconstruction. So to be in layman's terms, the road would get dug up, so to speak, and the old sub-base gravel that's been there for years and years and years, would get replaced with not only a different material, but something more free draining and less likely to result in the rutting we see now.
Sidewalks, curbing, catch basins,
All included in the study.
overlay, the sub base, lighting, street lighting, pretty much from Umpy to Maysville.
So the street lighting that you're talking about putting in, is that gonna go along with what Chief Hayes was talking about here not too long ago about the
Doing
site and the,
Doing the lumen studies
Yeah.
and checking out that.
yeah.
They're already, what's the word? They're already what?
LED?
LED, right? But the design of them, the height of them, all that stuff, that's part of this design process for the next couple of years. But it's included in the study, as well as the pedestrian bridge, which is a very unique feature that was added to this study to try to maybe create some housing opportunities on one side of town and connect it on foot to our major retail district. So I'm glad to see that's still a part of this scope of this project, because it's very unique. It's more than just the downtown change, and we've got federal people saying that's a great thing, we want to get behind that, we will put the money into it, and you guys are in for 10 cents on the dollar. So
if
pretty cool.
dig this all up, and the water and sewer obviously we should do at the same time, so is that part of what you guys would help with project funding for, or?
Ian can talk to that. The question is, are municipal water and sewer eligible for any of this funding?
I don't believe it would be, not with most transportation funding. We would certainly coordinate with you if we're going to be digging it up, and there's going to be an opportunity to do improvements on those, but I don't believe that this funding pot would be eligible for that.
There's a couple things
Those
to
kinds of
consider.
upgrades.
Oh, sorry, Ian, thanks. There's a couple things to consider, and I think you're right on it, Craig, which is you're gonna dig the road up anyway, so just from a practical standpoint, that's the right time to do it. If you don't do it, then anything that gets dug up and paved, you can't touch it for 5 years. So there's a significant level of coordination that would be needed there. To some extent, when we pre-design the existing drainage systems, some existing water and sewer may just need to be moved in order for those new drainage systems to function. In addition to that, and I'm not an expert in the age or condition of the city's municipal water and sewer supply, but there are likely systems that are of the age that if you were gonna dig the road up anyway, you would want to consider replacing them at that time, again, just from a practical standpoint.
And so after the PE's done, that gives you the opportunity to really bring in those other partners and stuff and discuss that and look at some grant opportunities and stuff. So you still got that 2-year to 3-year period before you start construction.
And that's an ongoing, I would emphasize that environmental coordination, right-of-way coordination, and particularly utility coordination are efforts that the department coordinates on an ongoing basis from the beginning of PE. So there'll be a utility coordinator that works for the Augusta office assigned to the project that will, as soon as the existing condition survey is completed, will look at what those systems are and begin to have those conversations with you.
But there haven't been any conversations yet with our Presque Utilities Department.
There was supposed to be a meeting today.
There was, yeah, I have just, I talked to Ross a few times already, and today was supposed to be kind of a kickoff of all of us getting together. Unfortunately, with Jared's absence, we pushed that.
Okay. I think that's that's a,
I'm,
that's
s-
a hinge.
I'm sorry, what
point
was
right
that?
there. That's a hinge point right there.
It's key, yeah.
Yep.
So, to clarify or agree with that, that was the impression that I was given this whole time, was that it did not include any local infrastructure, but that we would need to time when the thing's getting dug up so we can improve that. Is there, I know the utilities district probably has some real rough rules of thumb that they could give us, or can we get from them over the next year, 6 months, so we know what to plan for? If we've got to, you could almost say worst case scenario, literally replace every line down Main Street, what, what's kind of a worst case scenario? I have no idea if that would be 2 million, 10 million, but I mean that could definitely possibly be a sticker shock on the city's budget. So that's just something we need to consider. Not saying that it doesn't need to be done, but it clearly, when this gets done, should be done at the same time.
I would agree.
So what we don't want to have happen is you get the ground.
And again, this would be several years out.
Right,
Still the
right.
actual shovels.
Right. Well, that Ian makes a good point. So one of the reasons that, frankly, we were going to have a meeting today, and I think it's good that we're discussing this now, and I think that it would be an immediate component of PE as soon as we're underway is starting those conversations then, because from the beginning of PE, if that were next month, to the day that the first dump truck and excavator show up, you've got like 4 years. So there's certainly some time to not only consider what needs to be done, but also, as Kevin mentioned, explore certain funding opportunities to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think there's a chance for them to assess worst case scenarios and use cameras and, do some exploration. But I think you mentioned a statistic of 1911 on some of those sections. Probably a pretty good chance for it to be upgraded.
My concern was that just like I said, to get a real rough idea, is it possible that those additional costs that we would be incurring could make or break the entire thing because we don't have the funds? And I'm not saying that one way or another. It's just we don't want to get real close and everything finalized, and then we say, hey, we don't have $10 million to spend on that.
Well, it's a great point, Doug. But we would likely bond this project anyway. So our share is like $3 million. So if we had, then just pick a number. Maybe it's another $3 million to do the water. We'd just bond that at the same time. So that would be maybe $300,000 over 10 years to the taxpayers. $300,000 a year. We just talked about $300,000 of being like 1/10 of a mil or 2/10 of a mil. So it's real money, and it definitely deserves a lot of concern and planning, but it's not out of our budget. Because we'd be bonding it, likely. Now, the getting back to the point of this evening's conversation, which is the 307,000, those funds are basically going to be paid out, or could be paid out over a 12-month period to MDOT, and or we could choose to pay it up front or whatever. But those funds are basically available now.
Correct.
Right. So we're available to do that. So wanted to get us back. I think it's been a healthy conversation. We've spent a great amount of time, and I appreciate a gentleman joining us from Augusta. It's too bad that our other guy isn't here, but I know he is such a trooper. He must be really sick to not be here tonight, because I know he wanted to be here really badly. So
I had to talk him down from it. He called me, and he was hacking up a lung, and he was like, I think I can still. And I had to tell him, no, don't kill yourself.
This is clearly not your first rodeo here. Do you, with small Maine towns, I can't imagine that we're unique in terms of funneling traffic like that.
Not at all.
Do you have
No.
any similar circumstances that we can even just look on Google Maps?
Yeah.
You know, not a Portland, but a town that's 10 or 15,000 people that you know you've done something similar to.
So go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, just note, we do, you know, Maine DOT's, we've looked over this internally, and run it, like, we've reviewed the report that, Two Islands put together, and we think it does look okay. We do have guidance about exactly that. You know, there are quite a few instances where we've, you know, you take a 4-lane road, 2 in both directions, and you cut it down to 3 with 1 in both, and then the center turning lane, and we do have specific guidance about, like, at what thresholds does that start to have negative impacts on traffic flow. And generally speaking, we try to discourage any instance where that threshold is surpassed. There are a few towns I can think of that have approached us asking about that, and we've looked at it and said, no, that's just not gonna function with the level of traffic. But with the AADT, the annual traffic flows averaged on that street, I think it's well within the margins. It's in the safe zone, and especially if there's additional traffic taking off. I'm not as experienced. If Jared was here, he'd be able to give you lots of better examples. But
I can give an example.
I know, for instance, Yarmouth, further down south, did something along these lines.
If I go take a
Yeah.
trip down south, I can divert and check this town out.
Yeah, no, I'll give you an example that we looked at, and the reason it's the example that comes to mind is because it so closely sort of matches the scenario that we're proposing here. So to get back to the first part of your question, is it in southern Maine? Yes. Or it's actually in Falmouth. Is the population of that town more than Presque? Yes, absolutely. But that segment of Route 1 has a daily traffic volume almost identical to Main Street and Presque. So round numbers, 10, 11,000 cars a day. They have a 3-lane configuration with a center double left lane, and there's a car dealership there. It's Morong, Falmouth, Audi. So if you Google Earth that, that's a near carbon copy of the typical section, that, you know, the template of the 3-lane configuration, with a lot of similar conditions. You know, almost identical traffic volume, similar types of businesses adjacent to the road. And you know, similar needs from not only a traffic standpoint but a pedestrian standpoint. Cars still have to get through there. Deliveries still have to be made. You know, I can tell you by the number of people I see driving cars that say Morong, Falmouth, Audi down there, they're not having any trouble delivering cars and selling them either. That's a good example. There are probably others, but I can absolutely send you that.
We have, I believe, our traffic team did a report a year or 2 ago that kind of compiled quite a few examples of instances where we've done something along these lines in Maine, in a variety of towns, big and small. So
there's other components too to consider. You know, and kudos to City Manager Brown for pointing this out to me. But you can look at technical function based on reduction in lanes and you know, similar traffic volumes. But when we come into towns, right outside of Augusta, Hollowell is the example that comes to mind. When you start looking at actual real growth numbers, like occupancy, you know, rental occupancy rates and things like that, there's some, I think the number that you had mentioned to me that you didn't have very much of a hard time finding was something like 10%. So there are some good data on real measurable growth in towns that have gone forward with this program.
And definitely, you know, it's not my job or our job to try and force anything on anyone or any particular vision. Like, the whole point of this entire initiative is meant to try and help communities. You know, what would they want to do if the resources were available? But the key point is that, for the time being at least, there are resources available. And it is a pretty decent deal for the state and for towns. So it's worth considering while that money's on the table. And at least for the time being, we think that we've got a pretty good pretty good shot at this. So that's just for your guys'
When's the next window
consideration.
for all of this? I mean, as far as, so if we say, yeah, September's kind of too quick for us to come up with this because, you know, I really kind of think that some of the people sitting here at this table don't have any great understanding of what's in this document. And I know the people that live in this community have no idea of what's in this document to any great amount. What's the next period of time that we could have that we would initiate some of these grants and give you our thoughts on this if we didn't do it for September?
Likely, so
Take those cards.
you don't get the exact like release dates for federal grants until they, sometimes until they put them out. But likely, I think what would likely be the next one would be RAISE, which is it Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. It's been called many things over many years, but it's a grant that we've used for several BPIs before, I believe. Sanford was a RAISE grant. Wyndham was a RAISE grant as well. This would be a strong contender for RAISE as well, and that's likely February of next year. So it's not, it's not that that's an impossibility, but at the same time, we do the benefit of doing it something sooner is that we know for a fact that reconnecting communities is on the table right now, and we could go for it anytime something's in the future. And right now, there's no other, like, full disclosure, I'm unaware of any other project in the state that we're thinking is a match for that particular one. I'm not trying to play. I'm not a salesman.
No,
here.
I appreciate
but-
that, and I understand what you're saying, and I get the timeliness of it. I guess the thing is that.
But it is tight.
I can't honestly say that I physically have the knowledge that there's buy-in from the people that live in the community that they want these things. You know, I know there's a lot of nice things here, and there's a lot of things with this, but I don't have something. The one thing that I guess that I really would pride myself on is the fact that I think when we've done anything in the community of major, amount, we've had very explicit information. When we built the community center, which was a several $1 million project, the community voted on it. When we did other things that were great expenditures, the community, sounded in on it and voted on it, or had some very explicit plans put before them. I don't feel in this instance that, other than those 2 meetings, that we've had any of that the public understands any of this, that I've had significant people, and I can name them right down the street. I can name the IGA, Haynes, Carroll's Auto Sales. I can name all right down through. All are staunchly against this proposal, and they've told me that. So I just feel that, before we say, yeah, you'll live with it. No, they won't. I'm not going to put them in that position. That I just think this is too much, too quick, too rushed, not presented, and no buy-in yet from the community, except for the fact that we would like our downtown revitalized. But I don't know that they want it revitalized exactly this way. I guess that's my concern.
Revitalized per the concept.
Per the concept.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they want new sidewalks. I know they want the street fixed. I know they want new the side lights on the street. I know they want better paths. I know I want all of that, but I just kind of have asked these questions several times in the last few meetings that we've attended. And it just seems that some of these concepts are such hard and fast items that they have to be there or else it's not going to work, that we don't have that buy-in from the community. I guess that's my concern. I don't know how, I'm not against what you're doing. I think it's wonderful, but I don't think the public has said they think it's wonderful yet.
Right, but as Chris said, they've already had 2 meetings so far, and the public, if they had them.
But they presented preliminary things and said, here's something to look at, but they didn't say, this is what we're building. And nobody said, yes, we love that and we want that built. Nobody's done that. You know, that's my concern.
Yeah, no, I got you.
We're in so far for 76,000. We've spent on this project so far, with another 76 matched.
I actually believe it was about 112.
We're in for 112 right now.
Confirm those.
Right. And again, to continue this project, I think that the window has slid a few months earlier, but this discussion would have taken place in September or December or January. But it's taking place in August, and I don't think any of the other public meetings or anything like that are scheduled right now. The PE, the preliminary engineering, is still the next step in the process. Whether, you know, we still have, I think by moving the timetable up 4 or 5 months from where it was maybe 5 months ago, it seems like we're ahead about 5 months. And the fact that we've got a possible construction opportunity in
28, 29.
28.
That would be a multiple, this would be a 2-season construction for sure.
Yeah. So we're just dealing with something a few more months ahead of time, which gives us a few more months to conduct some public comment periods. But really the PE stuff in front of us right now, if you delay this and you say, I'm not ready to commit to 307 tonight, it may stop the entire process. There's a very good chance that these, what do you call them, CSDs? CDSs could go away. Some other they'll take them and divide them up into some other communities. This is a big chunk of change. It's directed at Presque. We're one of the preeminent projects, scope-wise, and if we push the neutral button on this at this point, it may send a signal to our partners at MDOT and federally that really don't want to do this. I think that'd be the wrong signal to send.
If we approve it, we can go back and completely change the design if the public doesn't like it. Is that correct? Or are we locked into this 3-lane deal?
Well,
Go ahead, Ian.
with PE, if just moving forward with PE, I don't think that anything is, like I mentioned, like it's the funnel, like PE, especially that first 30% is not pre-PDR, nothing is locked in with the feasibility. Just then, no, there's still some room for changes. If there's going to be an anticipation of extremely significant changes, then that is worth considering.
It's important to understand what extremely significant changes would mean, though. Because I think that what we're really talking about here is, and it's difficult to define something like extremely significant, and I realize that. But whatever that may be, and I think that changing the typical section that was identified in the planning study would border on a significant change. And there's some level of change where the grant application doesn't match the planning study, and the feds start to ask questions. And to some extent, those questions are like, well, this is what you identified as a concept in the planning study. This is what you want to do now. What happened? Right. And our answer to that would be, well, we had 2 public hearings in June and October, and this is where we landed. So I would say that part of and Ian can talk to this too, the part of the specific grant that we're going after here is aimed at improvements that provide traffic calming, that provide things like Someone mentioned the Star City IGA. The lady that works across the street won't even cross the road to go to Star City IGA. She drives from like Rustic Agency on Aging to Star City IGA because people drive too fast. So in general terms, these concepts are concepts that promote traffic calming, that shorten pedestrian crossings, that create a situation that typically makes people feel like they should drive slower. That is absolutely part of it. So I would consider it to be a core component of the recommendations. This change in the typical section. I would point out, to clarify, the last thing I'll say is, when we start talking about digging up Main Street, the 3-lane configuration is from Maple Street to basically Harry's Honda, the bridge at Park Street. From there north, the existing typical section is unchanged. The recommendations from Park and Allen to Maysville are more sidewalk and ADA compliance related. So, from the where are we digging up the road perspective, the road wouldn't be dug up per se from north of Blake Street. There are still significant improvements that would be made there. I mean, that's where there's no sidewalk on the west side. There desperately needs to be one, for example. Really, none of the sidewalk crossings are ADA compliant at this point, and that's, if you're going to get federal money, you have to do that by law. So there's lots of improvements there. But just to be clear, the full depth reconstruction piece is really the southern end that we've throughout the study called the downtown core. It's kind of Maple to Blake.
So, can I just?
And
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh no, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to pose. I mean, this is clearly a very good opportunity to get tons of money for improvements, and I don't think we want to pass that up. But in terms of signing on to this other 300,000, I guess what would happen? Say, when I had initially asked, like, who sets these guidelines, is what if collectively we were to decide that in one of these areas that you're necking down traffic, that we don't want to do it, but overall we're still doing some of this project, but for whatever reason, or maybe say one of the bridge crossings that you were necking down to two, that we don't want to do that. Is there something that in a year or some entity that's going to say, well, no, we're just flat out denying your thing because you're doing that? With my concern being, if that is possible, I don't know that we would want to commit another 300,000. If you see what I'm.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of different factors, and we're kind of because we have both the P and the grant that we're talking about, like, kind of shoved together. That kind of makes everything a little more. The order of operations is a little tighter than might be ideal. I would say that there's not, in terms of the PE. So just looking at the PE component, the 307,000 to do that, the PDR, the initial, like, the preliminary engineering and design to kind of like finalize some of this stuff to get it ready for a potential construction bid. There's flexibility to change some of those components. There is. The thing that's worth considering is, what is a change in one spot, then what are the add-on impacts on the other components of the project? If there's just one challenge point where, if there's one spot where there's something that's just, it's a poison pill, I wouldn't want that to kill a project that otherwise has a lot of good buy-in. But if that change then has add-on effects further down the line, that could be challenging. Something that is worth considering, and I think, I'll have to confer with some of the other, people back at DOT. I do apologize for not being Jared. But, well, only sometimes. How that might work with, like, the grants. I think that's something that we can consider on our end. Like, what would the sequence of that look like? Particularly if we were to continue going forward with the Reconnecting Communities one, where we're looking at applying by the end of next month. Because that would be more challenging. If it's just PE, then we have a fair amount of flexibility because we haven't necessarily, we're not locked into an agreement to build something at that point. So I would say in terms of voting for the 307 or agreeing to the 307 to move forward with PE, I wouldn't say that that's locking you into a commitment where a year down the road someone's going to say, well, but you changed X, Y, or Z. Unless we were to say, cut out 50% of the project, then that might be challenging.
And say for argumentative, say we were to do that, I'm still not, respectfully, I'm still not getting an answer. Who gives an okay to that? Is there obviously you guys can design whatever we tell you to design, but when that gets sent to who is the powers that be that would look at that and say, all right, this is a project that is 50% of what we were originally presenting. No, we're not giving you any money. Like, who is that entity where we have to please?
Oh, the entity who would you have to please? Well, I mean, it would ultimately be probably the deciding factor in that would be it'd be a discussion between Maine DOT and you and the city about what would be competitive going forward. Yeah. Because what it is ultimately creating a project that we think would work for a discretionary grant, right? Which
this is not a guaranteed grant. Put it that way.
No,
okay.
It's not. We're optimistic about it, but something that's worth keeping in mind with that is the more it gets cut down, the more it would be if you were to just say, there's not a good firm rule ultimately, but if you were to take this, for instance, and it were to just kind of gradually, if it were to eventually just become rehab of sidewalks, improvement of some pedestrian crossings, and maybe a short trail somewhere, that would be a challenging sell for a federal grant. They would probably say, well, that's not really like the kind of scale or scope, and they're going to do a benefit cost analysis as a part of that. Well, we'll do a benefit cost analysis as a part of that, and if it's a very limited scope project, then that's probably it might be much less competitive for ultimately federal money. That being said, you shouldn't design a project just based on its competitiveness. It should be a project that fits the needs of the community.
All right. Now, well, forgive me for that.
I hope that answers it. I know it wasn't the most
well, I guess I was more making an assumption that the grant is just there, that it's not so much a competition, if you will. So.
No, the way that these discretionary grants work is that we put in an application. So it's certainly worth, I guess I need to underline that component here. Applying for the grant application it is an application. It's not a sure thing. Yeah. The federal government, the US DOT could say no. That being said, I think it's fair, and I know it's fair because the department says this all the time. We do really well with these discretionary grants. Maine pulls in more than what we do. We do well with it, and a part of that is I think that we do good projects. We also have a very good congressional delegation, so we've pulled in a fair number of these VPI projects already, and at least my opinion, which might not be worth all that much at the end of the day, is that looking at this or something close to it, it would be a pretty competitive application, I think. Not all of them are.
I think just to circle back to Doug's comment a little while ago is, who's ultimately responsible for making the decisions. The city council did that a couple of years ago when we hired the consultant, T.Y. Lin, and entered into an agreement with MDOT as a partner to develop and vet this thing. So we signed off on this a few years ago, and it started the process with our city manager, with our public works director. We had meeting schedules. We were given the opportunity to hire a consultant, which we did. T.Y. Lynn's been doing that. They're our expert witness basically in this program. They and the MDOT have brought us this proposal that is still not 100% finalized right now, but it is to the point where we need to step up to the next level in the process. And it's because of the elements that are presented in that, whether you like the sidewalk widening or the lane diet, which is a big part of VPI, by the way. Whether you like the bridges or the other elements or the new traffic light system, these are all elements that strengthens the case so that that gentleman there can say, it's looking really good, guys, that we're probably going to win this. Now, there's no guarantee, certainly, that we're going to win it. But in view of all the other grant applications that they have done in the past, the elements that are presented with Presque is way different than Hollowell. Let's take that as an example. Hollowell, I went down there 2 years ago when I learned about VPI, and I went down, I took some pictures, and I emailed them to all the councilors. It was a nice looking 2-lane street with 2 parking areas and some improved sidewalks. But Hollowell was different than Presque, is that they had a very narrow street footprint between buildings. Presque's got a huge footprint between buildings. That's why we've got this wiggle room right now, especially what we're kind of dealing with on South Main Street from the IGA store south to, say, Dunkin' Donuts or north to Dunkin' Donuts. There's a lot of flexibility there in terms of, can we keep 4? Do we go down to 3? Do we have sidewalk on one side? Do we have sidewalks on both sides? There's a lot of wiggle room in that area. Well, that's a blessing for us. You know, we should look at that as an opportunity for us to say, hey, you know, we want to put our heads around this, have some community input, and come up with the best solution that appeases most people. In a lot of situations where they do VPI, they don't have this opportunity. It's off the table because the buildings are too close together, or because the traffic study is so high that they can't possibly do those types of things. Presque's in a unique position where we've got a lot of really creative opportunities, and that's one of the reasons why this funding and this application looks pretty appealing on paper. And again, you know, the opportunity to have 10 cents invested on a dollar project, that's generational. We won't get that opportunity again.
Okay, can I make a motion?
You certainly may.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the preliminary engineering funding request of $307,000, which is a 10% match to the total preliminary engineering cost of $3,070,000.
I'll second it.
Been moved by Doug and seconded by Hank. Is there any further discussion? All of those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 5 to 1. Motion carries. So, Mr. MDOT, you have a 5 to 1 vote in favor of the PE for $307,000.
Okay, fantastic. That's great. And thank you for letting me know, because I couldn't
hear the
couldn't
vote.
see raising their hands. I will follow up with my colleague as soon as he's feeling well. And a few of my
he's
others.
actually online with us, I believe, and I think there's a suggestion we should follow through with that. So, Tyler, can you grab a microphone and aim that?
Yeah, I think the suggestion was made that we look to hold a workshop within the next week or two, possibly bring in a few of the businesses that Craig advised, get that direct feedback with Jared, Chris, and Ian. If he wants to make a trip up, he can. You don't have to wear a tie though. That would be wonderful. So we'll schedule that very quickly.
Yep. we got lots of time between now and the end of the PE, but not only that, but between the time that the place gets dug up, and we always welcome the opportunity to have way more comments and considerations given than those of us that are around this table. And Chris, I think your group has done a tremendous job. I'm looking forward to seeing this continue.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Ian.
That brings us to the city manager's report.
Well, as everyone runs out of the room for the city manager's report. Thanks, Dana, Deb, and Jake. Appreciate you sticking around.
Oh no, they're still leaving.
Just a couple things for the city manager's report. First and foremost, I do want to congratulate, say thank you to our police force. On August 2nd, the PIPD executed a search warrant for a residence, and they did find a significant amount of controlled substance, drug paraphernalia, and cell phones and money were seized from this residence. And, this day and age, it just goes to show how hard the PIPD is working. This was a months-long effort, multiple agencies. The team did a great job and executed well. Everyone was safe, and those that do not belong are no longer with us in this community. So appreciate that. That being said, just a couple things going on. First, in our library, if you haven't been to our library yet, there's a brand new beautiful granite staircase that goes up from the library to the library house. Very nice there. Already mentioned our tax assessment team. Just want to say again, thank you very much. They have done just tremendous work the last few months, not just in Presque Isle, but our tax assessing team also does regional assessing and for many communities, and it's a great benefit. Our facilities and forum team, we do have the Mallet Brothers concert this Friday, so I know all of our counselors are going to be there. We've got cornhole, we've got wings, we've got beer, we've got a great rock band, and looking forward to the good time that it's going to be. Hank may even make an appearance as a bassist. You never know. As far as our rec department is concerned, some really great programs this week. They saw some very strong numbers with their new Brazilian soccer program. Really strong numbers there, and they're bringing back adult archery. So very, very cool things going on there. And for the airport, I know there's been a lot of talk about JetBlue will be arriving on. There will be more details on September 6th. There will be an event for JetBlue for their arrival the previous day, and then there will be also a town hall that they'll be hosting here in the council chambers. So more to come on that as we get to it. And then lastly, I just want to thank our digital team for, just tremendous work. The reach that we've been getting is phenomenal. We have truly folks across the country that are seeing some of the great stories and media that is going out there, and just really shedding a great light upon us. So big thanks to Kim and Sean for that, and really Sean's videos have just been taking off. So thank you. That is all that I have for a city manager's report. I will say we did talk about the lighting study. So the police department is currently now, they do have a lumen meter, and I personally completed the academy light study. It was very easy. There's zero light. Coming down Main Street, the police are doing that. Their police are doing that now, just so we have some more scientific data to present for Sant. And that is all that I have.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, there's a few brief announcements this evening. Believe the August 22nd on Wednesday through August 25th is the Crown of Maine Balloon Festival, sponsored by the Central Rooster Chamber of Commerce. It'll take place at the Northern Maine Fairgrounds. There's a lot of activities. And so look for calm winds in the morning and calm winds in the evening, and take your family and go on up. There's no charge to enter the grounds. There's a lot of food up there and entertainment and some music. So that's August 22nd to the 25th. I don't have the list of vacancies and stuff. I actually have no announcements other than that to talk about tonight.
For council.
Nomination forms for city council and SAD1 school board are available right now at the city clerk's office, and those need to be returned by
September 6th.
September 6th. So you've got about 4 weeks to get your nomination forms in. So see the city clerk's office just to the left of the
To the right.
window.
On the right now.
You changed? Who authorized that? Okay. Ask where the city clerk's office is and they'll direct you down on the first floor. And the next city council meeting will be on Wednesday, September 3rd at 6 PM here in city council chambers. And so I'd like to wish everybody a happy and safe Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you after the Labor Day weekend. Is there any exec session? Nope. So all those, if, I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
It's been moved by Hank, seconded by Craig. All those in favor of adjournment? Opposed? Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
We out of here.